Chapter 20. Blood reveals itself. When Gaston returned from the Barrier de la conference and left his room, he found La Jonquière installed by the fireplace and discussing a bottle of wine which he had just uncorked. "Well, Chevalier," said he, as Gaston entered, "how do you like my room? It is convenient, is it not? Sit down and taste this wine. It rivals the best Rousseau. Do you drink Rousseau?" "No, they do not drink wine in Bretagne. They drink cider or beer, I believe. I never could get anything worth drinking there, except brandy." Gaston did not reply, for he was so occupied that he had not even heard what La Jonquière said. He threw himself in an easy chair, with his hand in his pocket, holding Helene's first letter. Where is she? He asked himself. This immense, unbounded Paris may keep her from me forever. Oh, the difficulty is too great for a man without power or experience. Apropos, said La Jonquière, who had followed the young man's ideas easily, there is a letter for you. From Bretagne? Asked the Chevalier, trembling. No, from Paris. A beautiful writing, evidently a woman's. Where is it? Cried Gaston. Ask our host. When I came in, he held it in his hands. Give it to me, cried Gaston, rushing into the common room. What does monsieur want? Asked Tappan, with his usual politeness. My letter. What letter? The letter you received from me. Pardon, monsieur, I forgot it. And he gave Gaston the letter. Poor imbecile, said the false La Jonquière, and these idiots think of conspiring. It is like Darmental. They think they can attend to love and politics at the same time. Triple fools. If they were to go at once to La Filins for the former, the latter would not be so likely to bring them to the place to grieve. Gaston returned joyously, reading and rereading Helene's letter. Rue de Faubourg Saint-Antoine, a white house behind trees. Poplars, I think. I could not see the number, but it is a 31st or 32nd house on the left side, after passing a chateau with towers, resembling a prison. Oh, cried Gaston, I can find that. It is the Bastille. Du Bois overheard these words. Parbleu, I will take care you shall find it, if I lead you there myself. Gaston looked at his watch, and finding that it wanted 2 hours of the time appointed for his rendezvous in the Rue du Bac, took up his hat and was going out. What? Are you going away? Asked Du Bois. I am obliged to do so. And our appointment for 11 o'clock? It is not yet 9. You do not want me? No, thank you. If you are preparing an abduction, for instance, I am an adept and might assist you. Thank you, said Gaston, reddening involuntarily. But I am not. Du Bois whistled an air to show that he took the answer for what it was worth. Shall I find you here on my return? Asked Gaston. I do not know. Perhaps I also had to reassure some pretty creature who is interested in me. But, at any rate, at the appointed hour you will find your yesterday's guide with the same carriage and the same coachman. Gaston took a hasty leave. At the corner of the Cemetery of the Innocents, he took a carriage, and was driven to the Rue Saint-Antoine. At the 20th house he alighted, ordering the driver to follow him. Then he proceeded to examine the left side of the street. He soon found himself facing a high wall, over which he saw the tops of some tall poplars. This house, he felt sure, was the one where Helene was. But here his difficulties were but commencing. There was no opening in the wall, neither bell nor knocker at the door. Those who came with couriers galloping before them to strike with their silver-headed canes could dispense with a knocker. Gaston was afraid to strike with a stone, for fear of being denied admittance. He therefore ordered the coachman to stop, and going up a narrow lane by one side of the house, he imitated the cry of the screech owl, a signal preconcerted. Helene started. She recognized the cry, and it seemed to her as though she were again in the Augustine convent at Clisson's, with the Chevalier's boat under her windows. She ran to the window. Gaston was there. Helene and he exchanged a glance. Then, re-entering the room, she rang a bell, which Madame de Roche had given her, so violently that 2 servants and Madame de Roche herself all entered at once. Go and open the door, said Helene, imperiously. There is someone at the door whom I expect. Stop, said Madame de Roche to the valet, who was going to obey. I will go myself. Useless, madam. I know who it is, and I have already told you that it is a person whom I expect. But mademoiselle ought not to receive this person, replied the duenna, trying to stand her ground. I am no longer the convent, madam, and I am not yet in prison, replied Helene, and I shall receive whom I please. But at least I may know who this is. I see no objection. It is the same person whom I received at Rambouillet. M. Delivery? Yes. I have positive orders not to allow this young man to see you, and I order you to admit him instantly. Mademoiselle, you disobey your father, said Madame de Roche, half angrily, half respectfully. My father does not see through your eyes, madam. Yet, who has mastered your fate? I alone, cried Helene, unwilling to allow any domination. Mademoiselle, I swear to you that your father will approve if he be my father. These words, given with all the pride of an empress, cowed Madame de Roche, and she had recourse to silence. Well, said Helene, I order that the door should be opened. Does no one obey when I command? No one stirred. They waited for the orders of Madame de Roche. Helene smiled scornfully and made such an imperious gesture that Madame de Roche moved from the door and made way for her. Helene then, slowly and with dignity, descended the staircase herself, followed by Madame de Roche, who was petrified to find such a will in a young girl just out of the convent. She is a queen, said the waiting maid to Madame de Roche. I know I should have gone to open the door, if she had not done so herself. Alas, said the duenna, they are all alike in that family. Do you know the family, then? Asked the servant, astonished. Madame de Roche saw that she had said too much. Yes, said she, I formerly knew the Marquis, her father. Meanwhile, Helene had descended the staircase, crossed the court, and opened the door. On the step stood Gaston. Come, my friend, said Helene. Gaston followed her. The door closed behind them, and they entered a room on the ground floor. You called me, and I am here, Helene, said the young man. What do you fear? What dangers threaten you? Look around you, said Helene, and judge. The room in which there was a charming boudoir, adjoining the dining room, with which it communicated not only by folding doors, but also by an opening almost concealed by rare and peculiar flowers. The boudoir was hung with blue satin. Over the doors were pictures by Claude Audran, representing the history of Venus in 4 tableaus, while the panels formed other episodes of the same history, all most graceful in outline and voluptuous in expression. This was a house which Nos, in the innocence of his heart, had designated as fit for a prude. Gaston, said Helene, I wonder whether I should really mistrust this man who calls himself my father. My fears are more aroused here than at Rambouillet. After examining the boudoir, Gaston and Helene passed into the dining room, and then into the garden, which was ornamented with marble statues of the same subjects as the pictures. As they returned, they passed Madame de Roche, who had not lost sight of them, and who, raising her hands in a despairing manner, exclaimed, Oh, mon Dieu, what would Monseigneur think of this? These words kindled the smoldering fire in Gaston's breast. Monseigneur, cried he, you heard, Helene, Monseigneur. We are then, as I feared, in the house of one of those great men who purchase pleasure at the expense of honor. Helene, do not allow yourself to be deceived. At Rambouillet I foresaw danger. Here I see it. Mon Dieu, said Helene, but if by aid of his valets, this man should retain me here by force. Do not fear, Helene, am not I here? Oh, said Helene, and must I renounce the sweet idea of finding a father, a preceptor, a friend? And at what a moment, when you are about to be left alone in the world, said Gaston, unconsciously betraying a part of the secret. What were you saying, Gaston? What is the meaning of these words? Nothing, nothing, replied the young man. Some meaningless words which escape me, and to which you must not attach any consequence. Gaston, you are hiding some dreadful secret from me, since you speak of abandoning me at the moment I lose a father. Helene, I will never abandon you except with life. Ah, cried the young girl, your life is in danger, and it is thus that you fear to abandon me. Gaston, you betray yourself. You are no longer the Gaston of former days. You met me today with constrained joy. Losing me yesterday did not cause you intense sorrow. There are more important prospects in your mind and in your heart. There is something in you, pride, or ambition, more powerful than your love. You turn pale, Gaston. Your silence breaks my heart. Nothing, nothing, Helene, I assure you. Is it surprising that I am troubled to find you here, alone and defenseless, and not know how to protect you? For doubtless this is a man of power. In Bretagne I should have had friends and 200 peasants to defend me. Here I have no one. Is that all, Gaston? That is, it seems to me, more than enough. No, Gaston, for we will leave this house instantly. Gaston turned pale. Helene lowered her eyes and placing her hand in that of her lover. Before these people who watch us, said she, before the eyes of this woman, we will go away together. Gaston's eyes lighted up with joy, but somber thoughts quickly clouded them again. Helene watched this changing expression. Am I not your wife, Gaston? Said she. Is not my honor yours? Let us go. But where to place you? Said Gaston. Gaston, replied Helene, I know nothing. I can do nothing. I am ignorant of Paris, of the world. I only know myself and you. When you open my eyes, I distrust all except your fidelity and love. Gaston was in despair. 6 months previous, and he would have paid with his life the generous devotion of the courageous girl. Helene, reflect, said Gaston, if we were mistaken, and this man be really your father. Gaston, do you forget that you first taught me to distrust him? Oh, yes, Helene, let us go, cried Gaston. Where are we to go? Asked Helene, but you need not reply. If you know, it is sufficient. Helene, said Gaston, I will not insult you by swearing to respect your honor. The offer which you have made today I have long hesitated to make. Rich, happy, sure for the present of fortune and happiness, I would place all at your feet, trusting to God for the future. But at this moment I must tell you that you are not mistaken. From day to day, from this day to the next, there is a chance of a terrible event. I must tell you now, Helene, what I can offer you. If I succeed, a high and powerful position. But if I fail, flight, exile, it may be poverty. Do you love me enough, Helene, or rather do you love your honor enough to brave all this and follow me? I am ready, Gaston. Tell me to follow you, and I do so. Well, Helene, your confidence shall not be displaced, believe me. I will take you to a person who will protect you, if necessary, and who, in my absence, will replace the father you thought to find, but whom you have, on the contrary, lost a second time. Who is this person, Gaston? This is not distrust, added Helene with a charming smile, but curiosity. Someone who can refuse me nothing, Helene, whose days are dependent on mine, and who will think I demand small payment when I exact your peace and security. Still mysterious, Gaston. Really, you frighten me. This secret is the last, Helene. From this moment my whole life will be open to you. I thank you, Gaston. And now I am at your orders, Helene. Let us go then. Helene took the Chevalier's arm and crossed the drawing-room, where sat Madame de Roche, pale with anger, and scrawling a letter whose destination we can guess. Mon Dieu, Mademoiselle, where are you going? What are you doing? I am going away from a house where my honor is threatened. What? Cried the old lady, springing to her feet. You are going away with your lover. You are mistaken, madam, replied Helene in an accent of dignity. It is with my husband. Madame de Roche, terrified, let her hands fall by her side, powerless. You shall not go, mademoiselle, even if I am forced to use violence. Try, madam, said Helene, in the queenly tone which seemed natural to her. Hola, Picard couturier Blanchett. The servants appeared. The first who stops me I kill, said Gaston quietly as he drew his sword. What a will, cried Madame de Roche. Ah, Mademoiselle de Chartres and de Valois, I recognize you there. The two young people heard this exclamation, but did not understand it. We are going, madam, said Helene. Do not forget to repeat, word by word, what I told you. And, hanging on Gaston's arm, flushed with pleasure and pride, brave as an ancient Amazon, the young girl ordered that the door should be opened for her. The Swiss did not dare to resist. Gaston took Helene by the hand. summoned the carriage in which he had come, and seeing that he was to be followed, he stepped toward the assailants and said in a loud voice, 2 steps further, and I tell this history aloud, and place myself and Mademoiselle under the safeguard of the public honor. Madame de Roche believed that Gaston knew the mystery and would declare it. She therefore thought best to retire quickly, followed by the servants. The intelligent driver started at a gallop. Chapter 21. What passed in the Rue du Bac while waiting for Gaston? What? Monseigneur, you here? Cried Du Bois, entering the room of the house in the Rue du Bac, and finding the Regent seated in the same place as on the previous day. Yes. Is there anything wonderful in that? Have I not an appointment at noon with the Chevalier? But I thought the order you signed would have put an end to these conferences. You were mistaken. Du Bois, I wish to have another interview with this young man. I should make one more effort to induce him to renounce his plans. And if he should do so, then all will be at an end. There will be no conspiracy. There will have been no conspirators. I cannot punish intentions. With any other I should not allow this, but with him I say, as you please. You think he will remain firm? Oh, I am quite easy. But when he has decidedly refused, when you are quite convinced that he persists in his intention of assassinating you, then you will give him over to me, will you not? Yes, but not here. Why not here? Better to arrest him at his hotel. There, at the Muets de Mour, with Tappan and Dargonson's people. Impossible, monsieur. Bourguignon's affair is still in everybody's mouth in that quarter. I am not sure that they even quite believe in the attack of apoplexy, since Tappan now gives strict measure. It will be much better to arrest him as he leaves here. Monseigneur. The house is quiet, for men could easily do it, and they are already here. I will move them, as you insist on seeing him, and instead of arresting him as he enters, it must be done as he leaves. At the door a carriage shall be ready to take him to the Bastille, so that even the coachman who brings him here shall not know what has become of him. No one but Monsieur de Launay shall know, and I will answer for his discretion. Do as you please. That is my usual custom. Rascal that you are. But I think Monseigneur reaps the benefit of the rascality. Oh, I know you are always right. But the others? What others? The Bretons, Pontcallec, Ducoetic, Talouet, and Montluis? Oh, the unfortunates. You know their names. And how do you think I pass my time at the Hotel Muets d'Amour? They will know of their accomplice's arrest. How? Having no letter from Paris. They will fear that something is wrong. Bah! Is not Captain La Jonquière there to reassure them? True, but they must know the writing? Not bad, Monseigneur. You are improving, but you take useless precautions, as Racine says. At this moment, probably they are arrested. And who dispatched the order? I, pardon you. I am not your minister for nothing. Besides, you signed it. Are you mad? Assuredly. These men are not less guilty than the Chevalier, and in authorizing me to arrest one, you authorize me to arrest all. And when did the bearer of this order leave? Du Bois took out his watch. Just 3 hours ago. Thus, it was a poetical license when I said they were all arrested. They will not be till tomorrow morning. Bretagne will be aroused, Du Bois. Bah, I have taken measures. The Breton tribunals will not condemn their compatriots. That case is foreseen. And if they should be condemned, none will be found to execute them. It will be a second edition of the affair at Chillet. Remember, it was at Nantes that took place. Du Bois. I tell you, Bretons are unaccommodating. This is a point to settle with the commissioners, of whom this is a list. I will send 3 or 4 executioners from Paris, men accustomed to noble deeds, who will preserve the traditions of the Cardinal de Richelieu. Good God, cried the Regent. Bloodshed under my reign, I do not like it. As to Count Horn, he was a thief, and Dutchefort a wretch, but I am tender, Du Bois. No, Monseigneur, you are not tender. You are uncertain and weak. I told you so when you were my scholar. I tell you so again, now that you are my master. When you were christened, your godmothers, the fairies, gave you every gift of nature, strength, beauty, courage, and mind. Only one, whom they did not invite because she was old, and they probably foresaw your aversion to old women, arrived at last, and gave you weakness that spoiled all. And who told you this pretty tale? Perrault or Street Simon? The Princess Palatine, your mother? The Regent laughed. And whom shall we choose for commission? Asked he. Oh, Monseigneur, people of mind and resolution, be sure, not provincials, not very sensitive to family scenes, men old in the dust of tribunals, whom the Breton men will not frighten with their fierce eyes, nor the Breton women seduce with their beautiful languid ones. The Regent made no reply. After all, continued Du Bois, these people may not be as guilty as we suppose. What they have plotted, let us recapitulate. Bah! Mere trifles. To bring back the Spaniards into France. What is that? To call Philip V king, the renouncer of his country, to break all the laws of the state, these good Bretons. Du Bois, I know the national law as well as you. Then, Monseigneur, if you speak truly, you have only to approve the nomination of commissioners I have chosen. How many are there? 12. Their names? Du Bois gave him the list. Ah, you were right. A happy choice. But who is to preside over this amiable assembly? Guess, Monseigneur. Take care. You must have an honest man at the head of these ravagers. I have one. Who is it? An ambassador? Celmare, perhaps? Ma foi, I think if you would let him come out of Blois, he would not refuse you even the heads of his accomplices. Let him stop at Blois. Who is to preside? Chateauneuf, the ambassador from Holland, from the great king. Du Bois, I do not generally compliment you, but this time you have done wonders. You understand, Monseigneur. He knows that these people wish to make a republic, and he, who is brought up to know none but sultans, and who has a horror of Holland to the horror of Louis XIV, for republics, has accepted with a good grace. We shall have R. Graham for prosecutor. Kayet shall be our secretary. We go to work quickly and well, Monseigneur, for time presses. But shall we at least have quiet afterward? I believe so. We may sleep all day and all night. That is to say, when we have finished the war in Spain. Oh, cried the Regent, why did I strive for the Regency? I should laugh to see de Maine freeing himself with his Jesuits and his Spaniards. Madame de Maintenon and her politics, with Villeroy and Villers, would drive away the spleen, and Hubert says it is good to laugh once a day. Apropos of Madame de Maintenon, replied Du Bois, you know, Monseigneur, that she is very ill and that she cannot live a fortnight. Bah! Since the imprisonment of Madame de Maine and the exile of her husband, she says that decidedly Louis XIV is dead, and that she goes weeping to rejoin him. Which does not trouble you, eh? Oh, I confess that I hate her cordially. It was she who made the king open his eyes so wide when I asked for the red hat at your marriage. And Corbleu, it was not an easy thing to arrange, Monseigneur, as you know. If you had not been there to redress my wrongs, she would have spoiled my career. If I could but have crammed her de Maine into this Bretagne affair, but it was impossible. The poor man is half dead with fear, so that he says to everyone he meets, do you know there has been a conspiracy against the government of the king and against the person of the Regent? It is a disgrace to France. Ah, if all men were only like me. No one would conspire, that is certain, said the Regent. He has disowned his wife, added Du Bois, laughing. And she has disowned her husband, said the Regent, laughing also. I should not advise you to imprison them together. They would fight. Therefore I have placed one at Doullens, and the other at Dijon, from whence they bite by post. Let us put all that aside, Du Bois. Ah, Monseigneur, you have, I see, sworn the loss of the blood of Louis XIV. You are a true executioner. This audacious joke proved how sure Du Bois felt of his ascendancy over the prince. The Regent signed the order naming the tribunal, and Du Bois went out to prepare for Gaston's arrest. Gaston, on his return to the Muets de Mour, found the same carriage and the same guide awaiting him that had before conducted him to the Rue du Bac. Gaston, who did not wish Helene to alight, asked if he could continue his route in the hired carriage in which he had just arrived. The man replied that he saw no objection, and mounted on the box by the driver, to whom he told the address. During the drive, Gaston, instead of displaying the courage which Helene had expected, was sad, and yet gave no explanation of his sadness. As they entered the Rue du Bac, Helene, in despair at finding so little force of character in him on whom she leaned for protection, said, "Gaston, you frighten me." "Helene, you shall see before long if I am acting for your good or not." The carriage stopped. "Helene, there is one in this house who will stand in the place of father to you. Let me go first, and I announce you." "Ah!" cried Helene, trembling, she knew not why. "And you are going to leave me here alone?" "You have nothing to fear, Helene. Besides, in a few minutes I will return and fetch you." The young girl held out her hand, which Gaston pressed to his lips. The door opened. The carriage drove into the courtyard, where Gaston felt that Helene ran no danger. The man who had come to the hotel to fetch him opened the carriage door. Gaston again pressed Helene's hand, alighted, ascended the steps, and entered the corridor, when his guide left him as before. Gaston, knowing that Helene waited his return, at once tapped at the door of the room. "Enter," said the voice of the false Spaniard. Gaston knew the voice, entered, and with a calm face approached the Duc d'Olivarez. "You are punctual, monsieur," said the latter. "We named noon, and it is now striking." "I am pressed for time. Monseigneur, my undertaking weighs on me. I fear to feel remorse." "That astonishes and alarms you, does it not, Monseigneur? But reassure yourself. The remorse of man such as I am troubles no one but himself." "In truth, monsieur," cried the Regent, with a feeling of joy he could not quite conceal, "I think you are drawing back." "Not so, Monseigneur. Since fate chose me to strike the prince, I have gone steadily forward, and shall do so till my mission is accomplished." "Monsieur, I thought I detected some hesitation in your words, and words are weighed in certain mouths and under certain circumstances. Monsieur, in Bretagne we speak as we feel, but we also do as we promise." "Then you are resolved?" "More than ever." "Because you see," replied the Regent, "there is still time. The evil is not yet done." "The evil you call it, Monseigneur," said Gaston. "What shall I call it, then?" "It is thus that I meant it," replied the Regent. "The evil is for you, since you feel remorse. It is not generous, Monseigneur, to dwell on a confidence which I should not have made to any person of less merit than yourself. And it is because I appreciate your worth, monsieur, that I tell you there is yet time to draw back, that I ask if you have reflected. If you repent having mixed yourself with all these—" The Duke hesitated. "These audacious enterprises. Fear nothing from me. I will protect you, even if you desert us. I have seen you but once, but I think I judge of you as you deserve. Men of worth are so rare that the regrets will be for us." "Such kindness overwhelms me, Monseigneur," said Gaston, who, in spite of his courage, felt some indecision. "My prince, I do not hesitate, but my reflections are those of a duelist, who goes to the ground determined to kill his enemy, yet deploring the necessity which forces him to rob a man of life. But here the interest is so great, so superior to the weaknesses of our nature, that I will be true to my friendship, if not my sympathies, and will conduct myself so that you shall esteem in me even the momentary weakness which for a second held back my arm." "Well," said the Regent, "how shall you proceed?" "I shall wait till I meet him face to face, and then I shall not use an arquebuse, as Paltrot did, nor a pistol, as Vitry did. I shall say, 'Monseigneur, you are the curse of France. I sacrifice you to her salvation,' and I shall stab him with my poniard." "As Ravaillac did," said the Duke, with a serenity which made Gaston shudder. "It is well." Gaston did not reply. "This plan appears to me the most secure, and I approve of it. But I must ask you one other question. Suppose you should be taken and interrogated? Your Excellency knows what men do in such cases. They die but do not answer, and since you quoted Ravaillac, I think, if my memory serves me, that was what he did, and yet Ravaillac was not a gentleman." Gaston's pride did not displease the Regent, who had a young heart and chivalric mind. Besides, accustomed to worn-out and time-serving courtiers, Gaston's vigorous and simple nature was a novelty to him, and we know how the Regent loved a novelty. "I may then reckon," said he, "that you are immovable?" Gaston looked surprised that the Duke should repeat this question. "Yes," said the Regent, "I see you are decided." "Absolutely, and wait your last instructions." "How?" My instructions? Certainly. I have placed myself body and soul at your disposal. The Duke rose. Well, said he, you must go out by that door and cross the garden which surround the house. In a carriage which awaits you at the bottom, you will find my secretary, who will give you a pass for an audience with the Regent. Besides that, you will have the warranty of my word. That is all I have to ask on that point, Monseigneur. Have you anything else to say? Yes. Before I take leave of you, whom I may never see again in this world, I have a boon to ask. Speak, monsieur, I listen. Monsieur, said Gaston, do not wonder if I hesitate a moment, for this is no personal favor and no ordinary service. Gaston de Chanley needs but a dagger, and here it is. But in sacrificing his body, he would not lose his soul. Mine, Monseigneur, belongs first to God and then to a young girl whom I love to idolatry. Sad love, is it not, which has bloomed so near a tomb? To abandon this pure and tender girl will be to tempt God in a most rash manner, for I see that sometimes he tries us cruelly, and lets even his angels suffer. I love, then, an adorable woman, whom my affection has supported and protected against infamous schemes. When I am dead or banished, what will become of her? Our heads fall, Monseigneur. They are those of simple gentlemen. But you are a powerful adversary, and supported by a powerful king, you can conquer evil fortune. I wish to place in your hands the treasure of my soul. You will bestow on her all the protection which, as an accomplice, as an associate, you owe to me. Monsieur, I promise you, replied the Regent, deeply moved. That is not all, Monseigneur. Misfortune may overtake me, and find me not able to bestow my person upon her. I would yet leave her my name. If I die, she has no fortune, for she is an orphan. On leaving Nantes, I made a will wherein I left her everything I possessed. Monseigneur, if I die, let her be a widow. Is it possible? Who opposes it? No one. But I may be arrested tomorrow, this evening, on putting my foot outside this house. The Regent started at this strange presentiment. Suppose I am taken to the Bastille. Could you obtain for me permission to marry her before my execution? I am sure of it. You will use every means to obtain this favor for me? Swear it to me, Monseigneur, that I may bless your name, and that, even under torture, nothing may escape but a thanksgiving when I think of you. On my honor, monsieur, I promise you that this young girl shall be sacred to me. She shall inherit in my heart all the affection which I involuntarily feel for you. Monseigneur, one word more. Speak, monsieur. I listen with the deepest sympathy. This young girl knows nothing of my project. She does not know what has brought me to Paris, nor the catastrophe which threatens us, for I have not had the courage to tell her. You will tell it to her, Monseigneur. Prepare her for the event. I shall never see her again, but to become her husband. If I were to see her again at the moment of striking the blow which separates me from her, my hand might tremble, and this must not be. On my word of honor, monsieur, said the Regent, softened beyond all expression, I repeat, not only shall this young girl be sacred to me, but I will do all you wish for her. She shall reap the fruits of the respect and affection with which you have inspired me. Now, said Gaston, I am strong. And where is this young girl? Below, in the carriage which brought me. Let me retire, Monseigneur, and only tell me where she will be placed. Here, monsieur, this house, which is not inhabited, and which is very suitable for a young girl, shall be hers. Monseigneur, your hand. The Regent held out his hand, but hearing a little dry cough, he understood that Du Bois was becoming impatient, and he indicated to Gaston that the audience was over. Once more, Monseigneur, watch over this young girl. She is beautiful, amiable, and proud, one of those noble natures which we meet but seldom. Adieu, Monseigneur. I go to find your secretary. And must I tell her that you are about to take a man's life? Asked the Regent, making one more effort to restrain Gaston. Yes, Monseigneur, said the Chevalier, but you will add I do it to save France. Go then, monsieur, said the Duke, opening a door which led into the garden, and follow the directions I have given you. Wish me good fortune, Monseigneur. The madman, thought the Regent. Does he wish me to pray for success to his dagger's thrust? My FOI, no. Gaston went out. The gravel, half covered with snow, creaked under his feet, The regent watched him for some time from the window of the corridor. Then, when he had lost sight of him, "Well," said he, "each one must go his own way. Poor fellow." And he returned to the room, where he found Du Bois, who had entered by another door and was waiting for him. Du Bois's face wore an expression of malicious satisfaction which did not escape the regent, who watched him some time in silence, as if trying to discover what was passing to the brain of this second Mephistopheles. Du Bois was the first to speak. "Well, Monseigneur, you are rid of him at last, I hope." "Yes," replied the Duke, "but in a manner which greatly displeases me. I do not like playing a part in your comedies, as you know." "Possibly, but you might, perhaps, do wisely in giving me a part in yours." "How so?" "They would be more successful, and the denouements would be better." "I do not understand." "Explain yourself, and quickly, for I have someone waiting whom I must receive." "Oh, certainly, Monseigneur, receive them, and we will continue our conversation later. The denouement of this comedy has already taken place, and cannot be changed." And with these words, Du Bois bowed with the mock respect which he generally assumed whenever, in the eternal game they played against each other, he held the best cards. Nothing made the regent so uneasy as his simulated respect. He held him back. "What is there now?" asked he. "What have you discovered?" "That you are a skillful dissimulator, pest." "That astonishes you?" "No, it troubles me. A few steps further, and you will do wonders in this art. You will have no further need of me. You will have to send me away to educate your son, whom, it must be confessed, requires a master like myself." "Speak quickly." "Certainly, Monseigneur. It is not now, however, a question of your son, but of your daughter." "Of which daughter?" "Ah, true, there are so many. First, the Abbess of Chelles, then Madame de Berry, then Mademoiselle de Valois, then the others, too young for the world, and therefore for me, to speak of, then, lastly, the charming Bretagne flower, the wild blossom which was to be kept away from Du Bois's poisoning breath, for fear it should wither under it. Do you dare to say I was wrong?" "Not so, Monseigneur. You have done wonders, not wishing to have anything to do with the infamous Du Bois, for which I commend you. You, the Archbishop of Cambray being dead, have taken in his place the good, the worthy, the pure Nos, and have borrowed his house." "Ah," said the regent, "you know that? And what a house! Pure as its master. Yes, Monseigneur, you are full of prudence and wisdom. Let us conceal the corruptions of the world from this innocent child. Let us remove from her everything that could destroy her primitive naivete. This is why we choose this dwelling for her, a moral sanctuary, where the priestesses of virtue, and doubtless always under pretext of their ingenuousness, take the most ingenuous but least permitted of positions. Nos told me that all was proper. Do you know the house, Monseigneur? Do I look at such things?" "Ah, no, your sight is not good. I remember." "Du Bois." "For furniture your daughter will have strange couches, magic sofas, and as to books, ah, that is the climax. Nos says books are good for the instruction and formation of youth. They would do well to go with the breviary of Bussy-Rabbiton, of which I presented you a copy on your 12th birthday. Yes, serpent that you are. In short, the most austere prudery prevails over the dwelling. I had chosen it for the education of the son. But Monseigneur, who looks at things differently, chose it for the daughter." "Ah, c'est Du Bois," said the regent. "You weary me. I am just at the end, Monseigneur. No doubt your daughter was well pleased with the residence. For like all of your blood, she is very intelligent." The regent shuddered, and guessed that some disagreeable news was hidden under the long preamble and mocking smile of Du Bois. "However, Monseigneur, see what the spirit of contradiction will do. She was not content with the dwelling you chose for her, and she is moving." "What do you mean?" "I am wrong. She has moved." "My daughter gone!" cried the regent. "Exactly," said Du Bois. "How?" "Through the door." "Oh!" "She is not one of those young ladies who go through the windows, or by night." "Oh, she is of your blood, Monseigneur. If I had ever doubted it, I should be convinced now." "And Madame de Roche?" "She is at the Palais Royal. I have just left her. She came to announce it to your highness. Could she not prevent it? Mademoiselle commanded. She should have made the servants close the doors. They did not know that she was my daughter, and had no reason to obey her. Madame de Roche was afraid of Mademoiselle's anger, but the servants were afraid of the sword. Of the sword. Are you drunk, Du Bois? Oh, I am very likely to get drunk on chicory water. No, Monseigneur, if I am drunk, it is with admiration of your highness's perspicacity when you try to conduct an affair all alone. But what sword do you mean? The sword which Mademoiselle Helene disposes of, and which belongs to a charming young man. Du Bois, who loves her. Du Bois, you will drive me mad. And who followed her from Nantes to Rambouillet with infinite gallantry. Monsieur de Livry? Ah, you know his name. Then I am telling you nothing new, Monseigneur. Du Bois, I am overwhelmed. Not without sufficient cause, Monseigneur. But see what is the result of your managing your own affairs, while you have at the same time to look after those of France. But where is she? Ah, where indeed? How should I know? Du Bois, you have told me of her flight. I look to you to discover her retreat. Du Bois, my dear Du Bois, for God's sake find my daughter. Ah, Monseigneur, you are exactly like the father, Molière, and I am like Scapin, my good Scapin, my dear Scapin. Find me my daughter. Monseigneur, I am sorry for it, but Giroux could say no more. However, we will look for your daughter and rescue her from the ravisher. Well, find her, Du Bois, and ask for what you please when you have done so. That is something like speaking. The Regent had thrown himself back in an armchair and leaned his head upon his hands. Du Bois left him to his grief, congratulating himself that this affection would double his empire over the Duke. All at once, while Du Bois was watching him with a malicious smile, someone tapped at the door. "Who is there?" asked Du Bois. "Monseigneur," said an usher's voice at the door. "There is in the carriage which brought the Chevalier a young woman who wishes to know if he is coming down soon." Du Bois made a bound toward the door, but he was too late. The Regent, to whom the usher's words had recalled the solemn promise he had made to Gaston, rose at once. "Where are you going, Monseigneur?" asked Du Bois. "To receive this young girl. That is my affair, not yours. You forget that you abandoned this conspiracy to me. I gave up the Chevalier to you, but I promised him to be a father to this girl whom he loves. I have pledged my word, and I will keep it. Since through me she loses her lover, I must at least console her." "I undertake it," said Du Bois, trying to hide his paleness and agitation under one of his own peculiar smiles. "Hold your tongue and remain here," said the Regent. "Let me at least speak to her, Monseigneur. I will speak to her myself. This is no affair of yours. I have taken it upon myself, have given my word as a gentleman. Silence and remain here." Du Bois ground his teeth, but when the Regent spoke in this tone, he knew he must obey. He leaned against the chimney-piece and waited. Soon the rustling of a silk dress was heard. "Yes, madam," said the usher. "This way." "Here she is," said the Duke. "Remember one thing, Du Bois. This young girl is in no way responsible for her lover's fault. Consequently, understand me, she must be treated with the greatest respect." Then, turning to the door, "Enter," said he. The door was hastily opened. The young girl made a step toward the Regent, who started back thunderstruck. "My daughter," murmured he, endeavoring to regain his self-command, while Helene, after looking round for Gaston, stopped and curtsied. Du Bois's face would not be easy to depict. "Pardon me, Monseigneur," said Helene. "Perhaps I am mistaken. I am seeking a friend who left me below, who was to come back to me. But, as he delayed so long, I came to seek for him. I was brought here, but perhaps the usher made a mistake." "No, mademoiselle," said the Duke. "M. de Chanley has just left me, and I expected you." As the Regent spoke, the young girl became abstracted and seemed as though taxing her memory. Then, in answer to her own thoughts, she cried, "Mon Dieu, how strange!" "What is the matter?" asked the Regent. "Yes, that it is." "Explain," said the Duke. "I do not understand you." "Ah, monsieur," said Helene, trembling. "It is strange how your voice resembles that of another person." "Of your acquaintance?" asked the Regent. "Of a person in whose presence I have been but once, but whose accents live in my heart." "And who is this person?" asked the Regent, while Du Bois shrugged his shoulders at this half-recognition. "He called himself my father," replied Helene. "I congratulate myself upon this chance, mademoiselle," said the Regent, "for the similarity in my voice to that of a person who is dear to you may give greater weight to my words. You know that Monsieur de Chanley has chosen me for your protector? He told me he would bring me to someone who would protect me from the danger." "What danger?" asked the Regent. Helene looked round her, and her glance rested uneasily on Du Bois, and there was no mistaking her expression. Du Bois's face inspired her with as much distrust as the Regent's did with confidence. "Monseigneur," said Du Bois, who did not fail to notice this expression, in an undertone to the Regent, "I think I am de trop here, and had better retire. You do not want me, do you?" "No, but I shall presently. Do not go away. I will be at your orders." This conversation was too low for Helene to hear. Besides, she had stepped back and continued watching the doors, in the hope of seeing Gaston return. It was a consolation to Du Bois to know she would be disappointed. When Du Bois was gone, they breathed more freely. "Seat yourself, mademoiselle," said the Duke. "I have much to tell you. Monsieur, one thing before all. Is the Chevalier Gaston de Chanley in any danger? We will speak of him directly, but first of yourself. He brought you to me as a protector. Now, tell me against whom I am to protect you. All that has happened to me for some days is so strange that I do not know whom to fear or whom to trust. If Gaston were there—" "Yes, I understand. If he authorized you to tell me, you would keep nothing back. But if I can prove to you that I know nearly all concerning you—" "You, monsieur." "Yes, I. Are you not called Helene de Chaverny? Were you not brought up in the Augustine convent between Nantes and Clisson? Did you not one day receive an order to leave the convent from a mysterious protector who watches over you? Did you not travel with one of the sisters, to whom you gave 100 louis for her trouble, at Rambouillet? Did not a person called Madame Desroches await you? Did she not announce to you a visit from your father? The same evening, did not someone arrive who loved you and who thought you loved him?" "Yes, yes, monsieur, it is all true," said Helene, astonished that a stranger should thus know the details of her history. "Then the next day," continued the Regent, "did not Monsieur de Chanley, who followed you under the name of Delivery, pay you a visit which was vainly opposed by Madame Desroches?" "You are right, monsieur, and I see that Gaston has told you all." "Then came the order to leave for Paris. You would have opposed it, but were forced to obey. You were taken to a house in the Faubourg Saint-Antoine, but there your captivity became insupportable." "You are mistaken, monsieur. It was not the captivity, but the prison." "I do not understand you. Did not Gaston tell you his fears, which I laughed at first, but shared afterward?" "No. Tell me, what did you fear? But if he did not tell you, how shall I? Is there anything one cannot tell to a friend? Did he not tell you that this man whom I at first believed to be my father—" Gaston rose hastily and met Darganson with a law officer. Page 514, linked to larger image. "Believed? Yes, I swear it, monsieur." Hearing his voice, feeling my hand pressed by his, I had at first no doubt, and almost needed evidence to bring fear instead of the filial love with which he at first inspired me. "I do not understand you, mademoiselle. How could you fear a man who, to judge by what you tell me, had so much affection for you? You do not understand, monsieur. As you say, under a frivolous pretext, I was removed from Rambouillet to Paris, shut in a house in the Faubourg Saint-Antoine, which spoke more clearly to my eyes than Gaston's fears had done. Then I thought myself lost, and that this feigned tenderness of father concealed the wiles of seducer. I had no friend but Gaston. I wrote to him. He came. Then," said the Regent, filled with joy, "when you left that house, it was to escape those wiles, not to follow your lover? Oh, monsieur, if I had believed in that father whom I had seen but once, and then surrounded by mysteries, I swear to you that nothing would have led me from the path of duty." "Oh, dear child!" cried the Duke, with an accent which made Helene start. Then Gaston spoke to me of a person who could refuse him nothing, who would watch over me and be a father to me. He brought me here, saying he would return to me. I waited in vain for more than an hour, and at length, fearing some accident had happened to him, I asked for you. The Regent's brow became clouded. Thus, said he, it was Gaston's influence that turned you from your duty. His fears aroused yours? Yes. He suspected the mystery which encircled me, and feared that it concealed some fatal project. But he must have given you some proof to persuade you. What proof was needed in that abominable house? Would a father have placed his daughter in such a habitation? Yes, yes, murmured the Regent. He was wrong. But confess that without the Chevalier's suggestions, you, in the innocence of your soul, would have had no suspicion. No, said Aline, but happily Gaston watched over me. Do you then believe that all Gaston said to you is true? Asked the Regent. We easily side with those we love, monsieur. And you love the Chevalier? Yes, for the last 2 years, monsieur. But how could he see you in the convent? By night, with the aid of a boat. And did he see you often? Every week. Then you love him? Yes, monsieur. But how could you dispose of your heart, knowing that you were not your own mistress? For 16 years I had heard nothing of my family. How could I suppose that all at once it would reveal itself, or rather, that an odious maneuver should take me from my quiet retreat to my ruin? Then you still think that that man lied when he called himself your father? I scarcely know what to think, and my mind becomes bewildered in contemplating this strange reality, which seems so like a dream. But you should not consult your mind here, Helene, said the Regent. You should consult your heart. When you were with this man, did not your heart speak to you? Oh, said Helene. While he was there, I was convinced, for I have never felt emotion such as I felt then. Yes, replied the Regent bitterly. But when he was gone, this emotion disappeared, driven away by stronger influence. It is very simple. This man was only your father. Gaston was your lover. Monsieur, said Helene, drawing back, you speak strangely. Pardon me, replied the Regent in a sweet voice. I see that I allowed myself to be carried away by my interest. But what surprises me more than all, mademoiselle, continued he, is that, being beloved as you are by Gaston, you could not induce him to abandon his projects. His projects, monsieur? What do you mean? What? You do not know the object of his visit to Paris. I do not, monsieur. When I told him, with tears in my eyes, that I was forced to leave Clisson, he said he must also leave Nantes. When I told him that I was coming to Paris, he answered, with a cry of joy, that he was about to set out for the same place. Then, cried the Regent, his heart freed from an enormous load, you are not his accomplice? His accomplice, cried Helene, alarmed. Ah, mon Dieu! What does this mean? Nothing, said the Regent. Nothing. Oh, yes, monsieur. You have used a word which explains all. I wonder what made so great a change in Gaston. Why, for the last year, whenever I spoke of our future, his brow became dark. Why, with so sad a smile, he said to me, Helene, no one is sure of the morrow. Why he fell into such reveries, as though some misfortune threatened him. That misfortune you have shown me, monsieur. Gaston saw none but malcontents there, Montluis, Pontcalec. Ah, Gaston is conspiring. That is why he came to Paris. Then you knew nothing of this conspiracy? Alas, monsieur, I am but a woman, and doubtless Gaston did not think me worthy to share such a secret. So much the better, cried the Regent. And now, my child, listen to the voice of a friend, of a man who might be your father. Let the Chevalier go on the path he has chosen, since you have still the power to go no further. Who? I, monsieur, cried Helene. I abandoned him at a moment when you yourself tell me that a danger threatens him that I had not known. Oh, no, no, monsieur. We too are alone in the world. We have but each other. Gaston has no parents. I have none either. Or if I have, they have been separated from me for 16 years, and are accustomed to my absence. We may then lose ourselves together without costing anyone a tear. Oh, I deceived you, monsieur, and whatever crime he has committed or may commit, I am his accomplice. Ah, murmured the Regent, in a choking voice, my last hope fails me. She loves him. Helene turned, with astonishment, toward the stranger who took so lively an interest in her sorrow. The regent composed himself. "But," continued he, "did you not almost renounce him? Did you not tell him, the day you separated, that you could not dispose of your heart and person?" "Yes, I told him so," replied the young girl with exultation, "because at that time I believed him happy, because I did not know that his liberty, perhaps his life, were compromised. Then my heart would have suffered, but my conscience would have remained tranquil. It was a grief to bear, not a remorse to combat. But since I know him threatened, unhappy, I feel that his life is mine." "But you exaggerate your love for him," replied the regent, determined to ascertain his daughter's feelings. "This love would yield to absence." "It would yield to nothing, monsieur. In the isolation in which my parents left me, this love has become my only hope, my happiness, my life." "Ah, monsieur, if you have any influence with him, and you must have, since he confides to you the secrets which he keeps from me, in heaven's name, induce him to renounce these projects of which you speak. Tell him what I dare not tell him myself, that I love him beyond all expression. Tell him that his fate shall be mine, that if he be exiled, I exile myself. If he be imprisoned, I will be so too, and that if he dies, I die. Tell him that, monsieur, and add that you saw, by my tears and by my despair, that I spoke the truth." "Unhappy child," murmured the regent. Indeed, Helene's situation was a pitiable one. By the paleness of her cheeks, it was evident that she suffered cruelly. While she spoke, her tears flowed ceaselessly, and it was easy to see that every word came from her heart, and that what she had said she would do. "Well," said the regent, "I promise you that I will do all I can to save the chevalier." Helene was about to throw herself at the duke's feet. So humbled was this proud spirit by the thought of Gaston's danger, but the regent received her in his arms. Helene trembled through her whole frame. There was something in the contact with this man which filled her with hope and joy. She remained leaning on his arm, and made no effort to raise herself. "Mademoiselle," said the regent, watching her with an expression which would certainly have betrayed him if Helene had raised her eyes to his face, "Mademoiselle, the most pressing affair first. I have told you that Gaston is in danger, but not in immediate danger. Let's then first think of yourself, whose position is both false and precarious. You are entrusted to my care, and I must, before all else, acquit myself worthily of this charge. Do you trust me, mademoiselle?" "Oh, yes, Gaston brought me to you." "Always Gaston," sighed the regent, in an undertone. Then to Helene he said, "You will reside in this house, which is unknown, and here you will be free. Your society will consist of excellent books, and my presence will not be wanting, if it be agreeable to you." Helene made a movement as if to speak. "Besides," continued the duke, "it will give you an opportunity to speak of the chevalier." Helene blushed, and the regent continued, "The church of a neighboring convent will be open to you, and should you have the slightest fear, such as you have already experienced, the convent itself might shelter you. The superior is a friend of mine." "Ah, monsieur," said Helene, "you quite reassure me. I accept the house you offer me, and your great kindness to Gaston and myself will ever render your presence agreeable to me." The regent bowed. "Then, mademoiselle," said he, "consider yourself at home here. I think there is a sleeping room adjoining this room. The arrangement of the ground floor is commodious, and this evening I will send you 2 nuns from the convent, whom, doubtless, you would prefer to servants, to wait on you." "Ah, yes, monsieur." "Then," continued the regent with hesitation, "then you have almost renounced your father?" "Ah, monsieur, do you not understand that it is for fear he should not be my father?" "However," replied the regent, "nothing proves it. That house alone is certainly an argument against him, but he might not have known it." "Oh," said Helene, "that is almost impossible. However, if he took any further steps, if he should discover your retreat and claim you, or at least ask to see you, monsieur, we would inform Gaston and learn his opinion." "It is well," said the regent with a smile, and he held out his hand to Helene and then moved toward the door. "Monsieur," said Helene in a scarcely audible voice. "Do you wish for anything?" asked the duke, returning. "Can I see him?" The words seemed to die away on her lips as she pronounced them. "Yes," said the duke, "but is it not better for your sake to do so as little as possible? Helene lowered her eyes. Besides, said the Duke, he has gone on a journey, and may not be back for some days. And shall I see him on his return? I swear it to you. 10 minutes after, 2 nuns and a lay sister entered and installed themselves in the house. When the Regent quitted his daughter, he asked for Du Bois, but he was told that, after waiting half an hour, Du Bois had returned to the Palais Royal. The Duke, on entering the Abbé's room, found him at work with his secretaries. A portfolio full of papers was on the table. I beg 1,000 pardons, said Du Bois, on seeing the Duke. But as you delayed and your conference was likely to be prolonged greatly, I took the liberty of transgressing your orders and returning here. You did rightly, but I want to speak to you. To me? Yes, to you. To me alone? Alone. In that case, will Monseigneur go into my cabinet or into your own room? Let us go into your cabinet. The Abbé made a respectful bow and opened the door. The Regent passed in first, and Du Bois followed when he had replaced the portfolio under his arm. These papers had probably been got together in expectation of this visit. When they were in the cabinet, the Duke looked round him. The place is safe, asked he. Pardieu, each door is double, and the walls are 2 feet thick. The Regent sat down and fell into a deep reverie. I am waiting, Monseigneur, said Du Bois in a few minutes. Abbé, said the Regent, in a quick, decided tone, as of a man determined to be answered. Is the Chevalier in the Bastille? Monseigneur, replied Du Bois. He must have been there about half an hour. Then write to M. de Launay. I desire that he be set free at once. Du Bois did not seem surprised. He made no reply, but he placed the portfolio on the table, opened it, took out some papers, and began to look over them quietly. Did you hear me? Asked the Regent, after a moment's silence. I did, Monseigneur. Obey, then. Write yourself, Monseigneur, said Du Bois. And why? Because nothing shall induce this hand to sign your Highness's ruin, said Du Bois. More words, said the Regent impatiently. Not words, but facts, Monseigneur. Is M. de Chanley a conspirator, or is he not? Yes, certainly, but my daughter loves him. A fine reason for setting him at liberty. It may not be a reason to you, Abbé, but to me it is, and a most sacred one. He shall leave the Bastille at once. Go and fetch him, then I do not prevent you. And did you know this secret? Which? That M. de Livry and the Chevalier were the same? Yes, I knew it. What then? You wish to deceive me. I wish to save you from the sentimentality in which you are lost at this moment. The Regent of France, already too much occupied by whims and pleasures, must make things worse by adding passion to the list. And what a passion! Paternal love, dangerous love. An ordinary love may be satisfied and then dies away, but a father's tenderness is insatiable and above all intolerable. It will cause your Highness to commit faults which I shall prevent, for the simple reason that I am happy enough not to be a father, a thing on which I congratulate myself daily when I see the misfortunes and stupidity of those who are. And what matters ahead more or less? Cried the Regent. This de Chanley will not kill me when he knows it was I who liberated him. No, neither will he die from a few days in the Bastille, and there he must stay. And I tell you, he shall leave it today. He must, for his own honor, said Du Bois, as though the Regent had not spoken. For if he were to leave the Bastille today, as you wish, he would appear to his accomplices, who are now in the prison at Nantes, and whom I suppose you do not wish to liberate also, as a traitor and spy who has been pardoned for the information he has given. The Regent reflected. You are all alike, pursued Du Bois, you kings and reigning princes. A reason stupid enough, like all reasons of honor, such as I had just given, closes your mouth. But you will never understand true and important reasons of state. What does it matter to me or to France that Mademoiselle Helene de Chaverny, natural daughter of the Regent, should weep for her lover, Monsieur Gaston de Chanley? 10,000 wives, 10,000 mothers, 10,000 daughters may weep in 1 year for their sons, their husbands, their fathers, killed in your Highness's service by the Spaniard who threatened you, who takes your gentleness for weakness, and who becomes emboldened by impunity. We know the plot. Let's do it justice. M. de Chanley, chief or agent of this plot, coming to Paris to assassinate you. Do not deny it. No doubt he told you so himself. Is a lover of your daughter. So much the worse. It is a misfortune which falls upon you, but may have fallen upon you before and will again. I knew it all. I knew that he was beloved. I knew that he was called de Chanley and not de Livry. Yes, I dissimulated, but it was to punish him exemplarily with his accomplices, because it must be understood that the Regent's head is not one of those targets which anyone may aim at through excitement or ennui, and go away unpunished if they fail. Du Bois, I shall never sacrifice my daughter's life to save my own, and I should kill her in executing the Chevalier. Therefore no prison, no dungeon. Let us spare the shadow of torture to him whom we cannot treat with entire justice. Let us pardon completely. No half pardon, any more than half justice. Ah, yes. Pardon. There it is at last. Are you not tired of that word, Monseigneur? Are you not weary of harping eternally on one string? This time, at least, it is a different thing, for it is not generosity. I call heaven to witness that I should like to punish this man, who is more beloved as a lover than I as a father, and who takes from me my last and only daughter. But in spite of myself, I stop. I can go no farther. Chanley shall be set free. Chanley shall be set free. Yes, Monseigneur, mon Dieu, who opposes it? Only it must be later, some days hence. What harm shall we do him? Diable, he will not die of a week in the Bastille. You shall have your son-in-law. Be at peace, but do act so that our poor little government shall not be too much ridiculed. Remember that at this moment the affairs of the others are being looked into, and somewhat roughly too. Well, these others have also mistresses, wives, mothers. Do you busy yourself with them? No, you are not so mad. Think, then, of the ridicule if it were known that your daughter loved a man who was to stab you. The bastard would laugh for a month. It is enough to revive La Maintenon, who is dying, and make her live a year longer. Have patience, Monseigneur. Let the Chevalier eat chicken and drink wine with Delaunay. Pardieu, Richelieu does very well there. He is loved by another of your daughters, which did not prevent you from putting him in the Bastille. But, said the Regent, when he is in the Bastille, what will you do with him? Oh, he only serves this little apprenticeship to make him your son-in-law. But, seriously, Monseigneur, do you think of raising him to that honor? Oh, mon Dieu! At this moment I think of nothing du Bois, but that I do not want to make my poor Helene unhappy. And yet I really think that giving him to her as a husband is somewhat derogatory, though the de Chanleys are good family. Do you know them, Monseigneur? Parbleu, it only wanted that. I heard the name long ago, but I cannot remember on what occasion. We shall see. But meanwhile, whatever you may say, one thing I have decided. He must not appear as a traitor. And remember, I will not have him maltreated. In that case, he is well off with M. Delaunay. But you do not know the Bastille, Monseigneur. If you had ever tried it, you would not want a country house. Under the late king, it was a prison. Oh yes, I grant that, but under the gentle reign of Philippe d'Orleans, it is a house of pleasure. Besides, at this moment, there is an excellent company there. There are fêtes, balls, vocal concerts. They drink champagne to the health of the Duc de Maine and the King of Spain. It is you who pay, but they wish aloud that you may die, and your race become extinct. Pardieu, Monsieur de Chanley will find some acquaintances there, and be as comfortable as a fish in the water. Ah, pity him, Monseigneur, for he is much to be pitied, poor fellow. Yes, cried the Duke, delighted. And after the revelations in Bretagne, we shall see. Du Bois laughed. The revelations in Bretagne. Ah, pardieu, Monseigneur, I shall be anxious to know what you will learn that the Chevalier did not tell you. Do you not know enough yet, Monseigneur? Peste! If it were me, I should know too much. But it is not you, Abbé. Alas, unfortunately not, Monseigneur. For if I were the Duc d'Orleans and Regent, I would make myself cardinal. But do not let us speak of that. It will come in time, I hope. Besides, I have found a way of managing the affair which troubles you. I distrust you, Abbé. I warn you. Stay, Monseigneur, you only love the Chevalier because your daughter does? Well, but if the Chevalier repaid her fidelity by ingratitude. Mon Dieu, the young woman is proud, Monseigneur. She herself would give him up. That would be well played, I think. The Chevalier ceased to love Helene. Impossible. She is an angel. Many angels have gone through that, Monseigneur. Besides, the Bastille does and undoes many things, and one soon becomes corrupted there, especially in the society he will find there. Well, we shall see, but not a step without my consent. Fear nothing, Monseigneur. Will you now examine the papers from Nantes? Yes, but first send me Madame Desroches. Certainly. Du Bois rang and gave the Regent's orders. 10 minutes after Madame Desroches entered timidly, but instead of the storm she had expected, she received a smile and 100 louis. I did not understand it, thought she. After all, the young girl cannot be his daughter. Chapter 22. In Bretagne. Our readers must now permit us to look backward, for we have, in following the principal persons of our history, neglected some others in Bretagne, who deserve some notice. Besides, if we do not represent them as taking an active part in this tale, history is ready with her inflexible voice to contradict us. We must, therefore, for the present, submit to the exigencies of history. Bretagne had, from the first, taken an active part in the movement of the legitimated bastards. This province, which had given pledges of fidelity to monarchical principles, and pushed them to exaggeration, if not to madness, since it preferred the adulterous offspring of a king to the interests of a kingdom, and since its love became a crime by calling in aid of pretensions of those whom it recognized as its princes, enemies against whom Louis XIV, for 60 years, and France for 2 centuries had waged a war of extermination. We have seen the list of the principal names which constituted this revolt. The Regent had wittily said that it contained the head and tail, but he was mistaken. It was the head and body. The head was the council of the legitimated princes, the King of Spain and his imbecile agent, the Prince of Cellamare. The body was formed by those brave and clever men who were now in the Bastille. But the tail was now agitating Bretagne among a people unaccustomed to the ways of court, and it was a tail armed with stings like those of a scorpion, and which was the most to be feared. The Bretagne chiefs then renewed the Chevalier de Rohan under Louis XIV. We say the Chevalier de Rohan because to every conspiracy must be given the name of a chief, along with the prince, who was a conceited and commonplace man, and even before him were 2 men stronger than he, one in thought and the other in execution. These 2 men were Letremont, a Norman gentleman, and Phineas van den Enden, a Dutch philosopher. Letremont wanted money. He was the arm. Phineas wanted a republic. He was the soul. This republic, moreover, he wanted enclosed in Louis XIV's kingdom, still further to annoy the great king, who hated republicans even at a distance, who had persecuted and destroyed the pensioner Holland, John de Witt, more cruel in this than the Prince of Orange, who, in declaring himself de Witt's enemy, revenged personal injuries, while Louis XIV had received nothing but friendship and devotion from this great man. Now Phineas wanted a republic in Normandy and got the Chevalier de Rohan named protector. The Bretons wished to revenge themselves for certain injuries their province had received under the Regency, and they decreed a republic with the power of choosing a protector, even were he a Spaniard. But Monsieur de Maine had a good chance. This is what passed in Bretagne. The Bretons lent an ear to the first overtures of the Spaniards. They had no more cause for discontent than other provinces, but to them it seemed a capital opportunity for war, and they had no other aim. Richelieu had ruled them severely. They thought to emancipate themselves under Du Bois, and they began by objecting to the administrators sent by the Regent. A revolution always commences by a riot. Montesquieu was appointed viceroy to hold assemblies, to hear the people's complaints, and to collect their money. The people complained plentifully, but would not pay, because they did not like the steward. This appeared a bad reason to Montesquieu, who was a man of the old regime. "You cannot offer these complaints to His Majesty," said he, "without appearing to rebel. Pay first, and complain afterward. The king will listen to your sorrows, but not to your antipathies to a man honored by his choice." Monsieur de Monteran, of whom the Bretons complained, gave no offense, but, in being intendant of the province, any other would have been as much disliked, and they persisted in their refusal to pay. "Monsieur le Maréchal," said their deputies, Your language might suit a general treating with a conquered place, but cannot be accepted by free and privileged men. We are neither enemies nor soldiers. We are citizens and masters at home. In compensation of a service which we ask, namely, that Monsieur de Montaigne, whom we dislike, should be removed, we will pay the tax demanded. But the court takes to itself the highest prize. We will keep our money, and bear as we best can a treasurer who displeases us. Monsieur de Montesquieu, with a contemptuous smile, turned on his heel. The deputies did the same, and both retired with their original dignity. But the marshal was willing to wait. He behaved himself as an able diplomatist, and thought that private reunions would set all right, but the Breton nobles were proud, indignant at their treatment. They appeared no more at the marshal's reception, and he, from contempt, changed angry and foolish resolves. This was what the Spaniards had expected. Montesquieu, corresponding with the authorities at Nantes, Quimper, Vannes, and Rennes, wrote that he had to deal with rebels and mutineers, but that 10,000 of his soldiers should teach the Bretons politeness. The states were held again. From the nobility to the people in Bretagne is but a step. A spark lights the whole. The citizens declared under Montesquieu that if he had 10,000 men, Bretagne had 100,000 who would teach his soldiers, with stones, forks, and muskets, that they had better mind their own business, and that only. The marshal assured himself of the truth of this assertion, and was quiet, leaving things as they were for a while. The nobility then made a formal and moderate complaint, but Du Bois and the Council of the Regency treated it as a hostile manifesto, and used it as an instrument. Montaigne, Montesquieu, Pontcallec, and Talouet were the men really fighting among themselves. Pontcallec, a man of mind and power, joined the malcontents and encouraged the growth of the struggle. There was no drawing back. The court, however, only saw the revolt and did not suspect the Spanish affair. The Bretons, who were secretly undermining the Regency, cried aloud, "No impost, no Montaigne," to draw away suspicion from their anti-patriotic plots. But the event turned out against them. The Regent, a skillful politician, guessed the plot without perceiving it. He thought that this local veil had some other phantom, and he tore off the veil. He withdrew Montaigne, and then the conspirators were unmasked. All the others were content and quiet. They alone remained in arms. Then Pontcallec and his friends formed the plot we are acquainted with, and used violent means to attain their ends. Spain was watching. Alberoni, beaten by Du Bois in the affair of Selamure, waited his revenge, and all the treasures prepared for the plot of Paris were now sent to Bretagne. But it was late. He did not believe it, and his agents deceived him. He thought it was possible to recommence the war, but then France made war on Spain. He thought it possible to kill the Regent, but he, and not Chanley, should do what no one would then recommend to the most cruel enemy of France. Alberoni reckoned on the arrival of a Spanish vessel full of arms and money, and this ship did not arrive. He waited for news of Chanley. It was La Jonquière who wrote, and what a La Jonquière! One evening Pontcallec and his friends had met in a little room near the old castle. Their countenances were sad and irresolute. Duke Edic announced that he received a note recommending them to take flight. "I have a similar one to show you," said Montlouis. "It was slid under my glass at table, and my wife, who expected nothing, was frightened." "I neither expect nor fear anything," said Talouet. "The province is calm. The news from Paris is good. Every day the Regent liberates someone of those imprisoned for the Spanish affair." "And I, gentlemen," said Pontcallec, "must tell you of a strange communication I have received today. Show me your note, Duke Edic, and you yours, Montlouis. Perhaps it is the same writing and is a snare for us." "I do not think so, for if they wish us to leave this, it is to escape some danger. We have nothing to fear for our reputation, for that is not at stake. The affairs of Bretagne are known to the world. Your brother, Talouet, and your cousin have fled to Spain. Solduc, Rohan, Sambilly the councillor, have all disappeared, yet their flight was supposed to be natural, and from some simple cause of discontent. I confess, if the advice be repeated, I shall fly." "We have nothing to fear, my friends," said Pontcallec. "Our affairs were never more prosperous. See, the court has no suspicion, or we should have been molested already. La Jonquière wrote yesterday. He announces that the Chanley is starting for La Muette, where the Regent lives as a private gentleman, without guards, without fear." "Yet you are uneasy," said Duke Edic. "I confess it. but not for the reason you suppose. What is it, then? A personal matter. Of your own. Yes, and I could not confide it to more devoted friends, or any who know me better. If ever I were molested, if ever I had the alternative of remaining or flying to escape a danger, I should remain. Do you know why? No, speak. I am afraid. You, Pontcalec? Afraid. What do you mean by these words, after those you have just uttered? Mon Dieu. Yes, my friend. The ocean is our safeguard. We can find safety on board one of those vessels which cruise on a lure from Paimboeuf to St. Nazaire. But what is safety to you is certain death to me. I do not understand you, said Talouet. You alarm me, said Montlouis. Listen, then, my friends, said Pontcalec, and he began in the midst of the most scrupulous attention the following recital, for they knew that if Pontcalec were afraid there must be a good cause. Chapter 23. The Sorceress of Savernay. I was 10 years old, and I lived at Pontcalec, in the midst of woods, when one day my uncle Chrysagon, my father, and I resolved to have a rabbit hunt in a warren at 5 or 6 miles distance, found, seated on the heath, a woman reading. So few of our peasants could read that we were surprised. We stopped and looked at her. I see her now, as though it were yesterday, though it is nearly 20 years ago. She wore the dark costume of our Breton women, with the usual white headdress, and she was seated on a large tuft of broom and blossom, which she had been cutting. My father was mounted on a beautiful bay horse, with a gold-colored mane, my uncle on a gray horse, young and ardent, and I rode one of those little white ponies, which the strength and activity unite the docility of a sheep. The woman looked up from her book at the group before her, and seeing me firm in my stirrups near my father, who seemed proud of me, she rose all at once, and approaching me, said, "What a pity!" "What do you mean?" asked my father. "It means that I do not like that white pony," replied the woman. "And why not?" "Because he will bring misfortune to your child, sire de Pontcalec. We Bretons are superstitious, you know, so that even my father, who, you know, Montlouis, was an enlightened as well as a brave man, stopped, in spite of my uncle Chrysagon, who urged us to proceed, and trembling at the idea of danger to me, he added, "Yet the pony is gentle, my good woman, and Clement rides well for his age. I have often ridden the little animal in the park, and its paces are perfect." "I do not know anything of that, Marquis de Guer," replied the woman, "but the little white horse will injure your son Clement, I tell you. And how can you know this?" "I see it," replied she in a strange voice. "When?" asked my father. "Today." My father turned pale, and I was afraid. But my uncle Chrysagon, who had been in the Dutch wars and had become somewhat hardened by combating the Huguenots, laughed till he nearly fell from his horse. "Parbleu," said he, "this good woman certainly is in league with the rabbits at Savernay. What do you say to it, Clement? Would you like to go home and lose the sport?" "Uncle," I replied, "I would rather go on with you. You look pale and odd. Are you afraid?" "I am not afraid," said I. I lied, for I felt a certain shudder pass through me, which was very like fear. My father has since owned to me that if it had not been for my uncle's words, which caused a certain false shame in him, he would have sent me home or given my horse to one of the servants. But what an example for a boy of my age, who declared himself to have no fear, and what a subject for ridicule to my uncle. I continued, then, to ride my pony. We reached the warren, and the chase commenced. While it lasted, the pleasures made us forget the prediction. But the chase over, and having started on our road home, "Well, Clement," said my uncle, "still on your pony. You are a brave boy." My father and I both laughed. We were then crossing a plain as flat and even as this room. No obstacles in the way. Nothing that could frighten a horse. Yet at that moment my pony gave a bound which shook me from my seat. Then he reared violently and threw me off. My uncle laughed, but my father became as pale as death. I did not move, and my father leaped from his horse and came to me, and found that my leg was broken. To describe my father's grief and the cries of the grooms would be impossible, but my uncle's despair was indescribable. Kneeling by my side, removing my clothes with a trembling hand, covering me with tears and caresses, his every word was a fervent prayer. My father was obliged to console him, but to all his consolations and caresses he answered not. They sent for the first surgeon at Nantes, who pronounced me in great danger. My uncle begged my mother's pardon all day long, and we remarked that during my illness, he had quite changed his mode of life. Instead of drinking and hunting with the officers, instead of going on fishing expeditions, of which he was so fond, he never left my pillow. The fever lasted 6 weeks, and the illness nearly 4 months. But I was saved and retained no trace of the accident. When I went out for first time, my uncle gave me his arm, but when the walk was over, he took leave of us with tears in his eyes. "Where are you going, Chrysagon?" asked my father in astonishment. "I made a vow," replied the good man, "that if our child recovered, I would turn Carthusian, and I go fulfill it." This was a new grief. My father and my mother shed tears. I hung on my uncle's neck and begged him not to leave us, but the Viscount was a man who never broke a promise or a resolution. Our tears and prayers were vain. "My brother," said he, "I did not know that God sometimes deigns to reveal himself to man in acts of mystery. I doubted and deserved to be punished. Besides, I do not wish to lose my salvation in the pleasures of this life." At these words the Viscount embraced me again, mounted his horse, and disappeared. He went to the Carthusian monastery at Morlaix. 2 years afterward, fasts, macerations, and grief had made of this bon vivant, this joyous companion, this devoted friend, a premature skeleton. At the end of 3 years he died, leaving me all his wealth. "Diable, what a frightful tale," said Duke Edic. "But the old woman forgot to tell you that breaking your leg would double your fortune." "Listen," said Pontkelec, more gravely than ever. "Ah, it is not finished," said Talouet. "We are only at the commencement. Continue, we are listening. You have all heard of the strange death of the Baron de Cardec, have you not?" "Our old college friend at Nantes," said Montlouis, "who was found murdered 10 years ago in the forest of Chateaubriant." "Yes. Now listen. But remember that this is a secret which till this moment has been only known to me, and which even now must go no further than ourselves. The 3 Bretons, who were deeply interested, gave the required promises." "Well," said Pontkelec, "this college friendship of which Montlouis speaks had undergone some change between Cardec and myself, on account of rivalry. We loved the same woman, and I was loved by her. One day I determined to hunt the stag in the forest of Chateaubriant. My dogs and huntsmen had been sent out the day before, and I was on my way to the rendezvous, when on the road before me, I saw an enormous faggot walking along. This did not surprise me, for our peasants carry such enormous faggots that they quite disappear under their load. But this faggot appeared from behind to move alone. Soon it stopped. An old woman, turning round, showed her face to me. As I approached, I could not take my eyes off her, for I recognized the sorceress of Savernay, who had predicted the misfortune caused by my white pony. My first impulse, I confess, was to take another road and avoid the prophetess of evil. But she had already seen me, and she seemed to wait for me with a smile full of malice. I was 10 years older than when her first threat had frightened me. I was ashamed to go back. "Good day, Viscount de Pontkelec," said she. "How is the Marquis de Guer?" "Well, good woman, and I shall be quite easy about him, if you will assure me that nothing will happen to him during my absence." "Ah, said she, laughing. "You have not forgotten the plains of Savernay. You have a good memory, Viscount. But yet, if I gave you some advice, you would not follow it any more than the first time. Man is blind. And what is your advice?" "Not to go hunting today." "Why not?" "And to return at once upon Calec." "I cannot. I have a rendezvous with some friends at Chateaubriant." "So much the worse, Viscount, for blood will be spilled." "Mine, yours, and another's." "Bah! Are you mad?" "So said your uncle Chrysagon." "How is he?" "Do you not know that he died 7 years ago at Morlaix?" "Poor fellow," said the woman. "Like you, he would not believe. At length he beheld, but it was too late." I shuddered involuntarily. But false shame whispered that it would be cowardly to give way, and that doubtless the fulfillment of the pretended witch's former prediction had been but a chance. "Ah, I see that a former experience has not made you wiser, my fine fellow," said she. "Well, go to Chateaubriant then," since you must have it so, but at least send back that handsome hunting knife. And with what will monsieur cut the stag's foot? Asked the servant who followed me. With your knife, said the old woman. That stag is a royal animal, replied the servant, and deserves a hunting knife. Besides, said I, you said my blood would flow. What means that? I shall be attacked, and if so, I shall want to defend myself. I do not know what it means, replied the old woman, but I do know that in your place, my brave gentleman, I would listen to a poor old woman, and that I would not go to Shadow Bryant. Or if I did go, it would be without my hunting knife. Do not listen to the old witch, monsieur, said the servant, who was doubtless afraid to take the fatal weapon. If I had been alone, I should have returned, but before my servant I did not like to do so. Thank you, my good woman, said I, but really I do not see what reason there is for not going to Shadow Bryant. As to my knife, I shall keep it. If I be attacked, I must have a weapon to defend myself. Go, then, and defend yourself, said the old woman, shaking her head. We cannot escape our destiny. I heard no more. I urged my horse to a gallop, but, turning a corner, I saw that the old woman had resumed her route, and I lost sight of her. An hour after I was in the forest of Shadow Bryant, and I met you, Montluis and Talouet, for you were both of the party. It is true, said Talouet, and I began to understand. And I, said Montluis. But I know nothing of it, said Du Quetic. So pray continue, Pontcallec. Our dog started the deer, and we set off in pursuit, but we were not the only hunters in the forest. At a distance we heard the sound of another pack, which gradually approached. Soon the two crossed, and some of my dogs by mistake went after the wrong deer. I ran after them to stop them, which separated me from you. You followed the rest of our pack. But someone had forestalled me. I heard the howls of my dogs under the lash of a whip. I redoubled my pace, and found the Baron de Kardec striking them. I told you there were causes of dislike between us, which only needed an opportunity to burst out. I asked him why he struck my dogs. His reply was haughtier than my question. We were alone. We were both 20 years of age. We were rivals. Each was armed. We drew our knives, threw ourselves one upon the other, and Kardec fell from his horse, pierced through the body. To tell you what I felt when I saw him, bleeding and writhing in agony, would be impossible. I spurred my horse and darted to the forest like a madman. I heard the voices of the hunters, and I arrived one of the first. But I remember, do you remember, Montluis, that you asked me why I was so pale? I do, said Montluis. Then I remembered the advice of the sorceress, and reproached myself bitterly for neglecting it. This solitary and fatal duel seemed to me like an assassination. Nantes and his environs became insupportable to me, for every day I heard of the murder of Kardec. It is true that no one suspected me, but the secret voice of my conscience spoke so loud that 20 times I was on the point of denouncing myself. Then I left Nantes and went to Paris, but not until I had searched for the sorceress. Not knowing either her name or her residence, I could not find her. It is strange, said Talouet. And have you ever seen her since? Wait, said Pontcallec, and listen, for now comes a terrible part. This winter, or rather last autumn, I say winter, because there was snow falling, though it was only in November, I was returning from Guer, and had ordered a halt at Pontcallec after a day during which I had been shooting snipes in the marshes with 2 of my tenants. We arrived, benumbed with cold, at the rendezvous, and found a good fire and supper awaiting us. As I entered and received the salutations and compliments of my people, I perceived in the chimney corner an old woman wrapped in a large grim black cloak, who appeared to be asleep. Who is that? I asked of the farmer, and trembling involuntarily. An old beggar, whom I do not know, and she looks like a witch, said he, but she was perishing with cold, hunger, and fatigue. She came begging. I told her to come in, and gave her a piece of bread, which she eat while she warmed herself, and now she has gone to sleep. The figure moved slightly in its corner. What's happened to you, Monsieur le Marquis? Asked the farmer's wife, that you are so wet, and that your clothes are splashed with mud up to the shoulder? You nearly had to dine without me, my good Martine, I replied, although this repast and this fire were prepared for me. Truly, cried the good woman, alarmed. Ah, monsieur had a narrow escape, said the farmer. How so, my good lord? You know your marshes are full of bogs. I venture without sounding the ground, and all at once I felt that I was sinking in, so that, had it not been for my gun which I held across, enabling your husband to come and pull me out, I should have been smothered, which is not only a cruel but a stupid death. Oh, monsieur, said the wife, pray do not expose yourself in this way. Let him alone, said the sepulchral voice of the figure crouched in the chimney corner. He will not die thus. I foretell that. And, lowering the hood of her gray cloak, she showed me the face of that woman who had twice crossed my path with sad prediction. I remained motionless and petrified. You recognize me? She asked, without moving. I made a sign of assent, but had not really the courage to reply. All gathered in a circle round us. No, no, continued she. Be easy, Marquis de Guer. You will not die thus. How do you know? I stammered out, with a conviction, however, that she did know. I cannot tell you, for I do not know myself, but you know well that I do not make mistakes. And how shall I die? Asked I, making an effort over myself to ask this question and to listen to her reply. You will die by the sea. Beware the water. Marquis de Guer, she replied. How? Asked I, what do you mean? I have spoken, and cannot explain further, Marquis. But again I say, beware the water. All the peasants looked frightened. Some muttered prayers. Others crossed themselves. The old woman returned to her corner, buried herself again in her cloak, and did not speak another syllable. Chapter 24. The arrest. The details of this affair may some day escape my memory, but the impression it made will never be effaced. I had not the shadow of a doubt, and this prediction took the aspect of reality, as far as I was concerned. Yes, continued Pontcalec, even though you should laugh, like my uncle Chrysagon, you would never change my opinion, or take away from me the conviction that the prediction will be realized. Therefore, I tell you, were it true that we are pursued by Du Bois's exempts, were there a boat ready to take us to Belle Isle to escape them, so convinced am I that the sea will be fatal to me, and that no other death has any power over me, that I would give myself up to my pursuers, and say, do your worst. I shall not die by your hands. The three Bretons had listened in silence to this strange declaration, which gathered solemnity from the circumstances in which they stood. Then, said Duke Edic, after a pause, we understand your courage, my friend. Believing yourself destined to one sort death, you are indifferent to all other danger. But take care. If the anecdote were known, it would rob you of all merit. Not in our eyes, for we know what you really are. But others would say that you entered the conspiracy because you can neither be beheaded, shot, nor killed by the dagger, but that it would have been very different if conspirators were drowned. And perhaps they would speak the truth, said Pontcalec, smiling. But, my dear Marquis, said Montlouis, we, who have not the same ground for security, should, I think, pay some attention to the advice of our unknown friend and leave Nantes or even France as soon as possible. But this may be wrong, said Pontcalec, and I do not believe our projects are known at Nantes or elsewhere. And probably nothing will be known till Gaston has done his work, said Talouet. And then we shall have nothing to fear but enthusiasm, and that does not kill. As to you, Pontcalec, never approach a seaport, never go to sea, and you will live to the age of Methuselah. The conversation might have continued in this jocular strain, but at this moment several gentlemen, with whom they had appointed a meeting, came in by different secret ways and in different costumes. It was not that they had much to fear from the provincial police. That of Nantes, though Nantes was a large town, was not sufficiently well organized to alarm conspirators, who had in the locality the influence of name and social position. But the police of Paris, the Regent's police or that of Du Bois, sent down spies, who were easily detected by their ignorance of the place and the difference of their dress and speech. Though this Breton association was numerous, we shall only occupy ourselves with its four chiefs, who were beyond all the others in name, fortune, courage, and intelligence. They discussed a new edict of Montesquieu's and the necessity of arming themselves in case of violence on the marshal's part. Thus it was nothing less than the beginning of a civil war, for which the pretext were the impiety of the Regent's court and Du Bois's sacrileges. pretext which would arouse the anathemas of an essentially religious province against a reign so little worthy to succeed that of Louis XIV. Pont-Calais explained their plan, not suspecting that at that moment Du Bois's police had sent a detachment to each of their dwellings, and that an exempt was even then on the spot with orders to arrest them. Thus all who had taken part in the meeting saw, from afar, the bayonets of soldiers at their houses, and thus, being forewarned, they might probably escape by a speedy flight. They might easily find retreats among their numerous friends. Many of them might gain the coast and escape to Holland, Spain, or England. Pont-Calais, Duquetic, Montlouis, and Talouet, as usual, went out together. But on arriving at the end of the street where Montlouis's house was situated, they perceived lights crossing the windows of the apartments, and a sentinel barring the door with his musket. "Oh," said Montlouis, stopping his companions. "What is going on at my house?" "Indeed, there is something," said Talouet, "and just now I fancied I saw a sentinel at the Hotel de Rouen." "Why did you not say so?" asked Duquetic. "It was surely worth mentioning." "Oh, I was afraid of appearing alarmist, and I thought it might be only a patrol. But this man belongs to the regiment of Picardy," said Montlouis, stepping back. "It is strange," said Pont-Calais. "Let me go up the lane which leads to my house. If that also be guarded, there will be no further doubt." Keeping together, in case of an attack, they went on silently till they saw a detachment of 20 men grouped round Pont-Calais' house. "This passes a joke," said Duquetic, "and unless our houses have all caught fire at once, I do not understand these uniforms around them. As to me, I shall leave mine most certainly." "And I," said Talouet, "shall be off to St. Nazaire, and from thence to Le Croisic. Take my advice and come with me. I know a brig about to start for Newfoundland, and the captain is a servant of mine. If the air on shore becomes too bad, we will embark, set sail, and vogue la galères. Come, Pont-Calais, forget your old witch and come with us." "No, no," said Pont-Calais. "I will not rush on my fate. Reflect, my friends, we are the chiefs, and we should set a strange example by flying before we even know if a real danger exists. There is no proof against us. La Jonquière is incorruptible. Gaston is intrepid. Our letters from him say that all will soon be over. Perhaps, at this very moment, France may be delivered and the Regent dead. What would be thought of us if, at such a time, we had taken flight? The example of our desertion would ruin everything here. Consider it well. I do not command you as a chief, but I counsel you as a friend. You are not obliged to obey, for I free you from your oath, but in your place I would not go. We have given an example of devotion. The worst that can happen to us is to give that a martyrdom, but this will not, I hope, be the case. If we are arrested, the Breton Parliament will judge us. Of what is it composed? Of our friends and accomplices. We are safer in a prison in which they hold the key than on a vessel at the mercy of the winds. Besides, before the Parliament is assembled, all Bretagne will be in arms. Tried, we are absolved. Absolved, we are triumphant." "He is right," said Talouet. "My uncle, my brothers, all my family are compromised with me. I shall save myself with them, or die with him." "My dear Talouet," said Montlouis, "all this is very fine, but I have a worse opinion of this affair than you have. If we are in the hands of any one, it is Du Bois, who is not a gentleman, and hates those who are. I do not like these people who belong to no class, who are neither nobles, soldiers, nor priests. I like better a true gentleman, a soldier, or a monk. At least they are all supported by the authority of their profession. However, I appeal, as we generally do, to the majority, but I confess that if it be for flight, I shall fly most willingly." "And I," said Duquetic. "Montesquieu may be better informed than we suppose, and if it be Du Bois who holds us in his clutches, we shall have some difficulty in freeing ourselves." "And I repeat, we must remain," said Pont-Calais. "The duty of a general is to remain at the head of his soldiers. The duty of the chief of a conspiracy is to die at the head of the plot." "My dear friend," said Montlouis, "your sorceress blinds you. To gain credence for her prediction, you are ready to drown yourself intentionally. I am less enthusiastic about this Pythoness, I confess, and as I do not know what kind of death is in store for me, I am somewhat uneasy." "You are mistaken, Montlouis," said Pont-Calais. "It is duty above all which influences me, And besides, if I do not die for this, you will not. For I am your chief, and certainly before the judges I shall reclaim the title which I have abjured today. If I do not die by Du Bois, neither will you, we soldiers, and afraid to pay an official visit to Parliament. For that is it, after all, and nothing else. Benches covered with black robes, smiles of intelligence between the accused and the judge. It is a battle with the Regent. Let us accept it, and when Parliament shall absolve us, we shall have done as well as if we had put to flight all the troops in Bretagne. Montlewis proposed to refer to a majority. Said Duke Edic, let us do so. I did not speak from fear, said Montlewis, but I do not see the use of walking into the lion's mouth if we can muzzle him. That was unnecessary, Montlewis, said Pontcalec. We all know you, and we accept your proposition. Let those who are for flight hold up their hands. Montlewis and Duke Edic raised their hands. We are 2 and 2, said Montlewis. We must then trust to inspiration. You forget, said Pontcalec, that as president I have 2 votes. It is true. Let those, then, who are for remaining here hold up their hands. Pontcalec and Talouet raised their hands. Thus the majority was fixed. This deliberation in the open street might have seemed absurd, had it not involved in its results the question of life or death to 4 of the noblest gentlemen in Bretagne. Well, said Montlewis, it appears, Duke Edic, that we were wrong. And now, Marquis, we obey your orders. See what I do, said Pontcalec, and then do as you like. And he walked straight up to his house, followed by his 3 friends. Arriving at the door, he tapped the soldier on the shoulder. My friend, said he, call your officer, I beg. The soldier passed the order to the sergeant, who called the captain. What do you want? Asked the latter. I want to come into my house. Who are you? I am the Marquis de Pontcalec. Silence, said the officer in a low voice, and fly instantly. I am here to arrest you. Then aloud, you cannot pass, said he, pushing back the Marquis and closing the soldiers before him. Pontcalec took the officer's hand, pressed it, and said, You are a brave fellow, but I must go in. I thank you, and may God reward you. The officer, surprised, opened his ranks, and Pontcalec, followed by his friends, crossed the court. On seeing him, his family uttered cries of terror. What is it? Asked the Marquis calmly. And what is going on here? I arrest you, Monsieur le Marquis, said an exempt of the Provost of Paris. Pardieu, what a fine exploit, said Montlewis. And you seem a clever fellow. You, a provost exempt, and absolutely those whom you are sent to arrest are obliged to come and take you by the collar. The exempt saluted this gentleman, who joked so pleasantly at such a time, and asked his name. I am Monsieur de Montlewis. Look, my dear fellow, if you have not got an order against me, 2. If you have, execute it. Monsieur, said the exempt, bowing lower as he became more astonished, it is not I, but my comrade Dutchevon, who is charged to arrest you. Shall I tell him? Where is he? At your house, waiting for you. I should be sorry to keep you waiting long, said Montlewis, and I will go to him. Thanks, my friend. The exempt was bewildered. Montlewis pressed Pontcalec's hand in those of the others. Then, whispering a few words to them, he set out for his house and was arrested. Talouet and Duke Edic did the same, so that by 11 at night the work was over. The news of the arrest ran to the town, but everyone said, the Parliament will absolve them. The next day, however, their opinions changed, for there arrived from Nantes the commission, perfectly constituted and wanting, as we have said, neither president, procureur du roi, secretary, nor even executioners. We use the plural, for there were 3. The bravest men are sometimes stupefied by great misfortune. This fell on the province with the power and rapidity of a thunderstroke. It made no cry, no movement. Bretagne expired. The commission installed itself at once and expected that, in consideration of its powers, people would bow before it rather than give offense. But the terror was so great that each one thought of themselves alone and merely deplored the fate of the others. This, then, was the state of affairs in Bretagne 3 or 4 days after the arrest of Pontcalec and his 3 friends. Let us leave them a while at Nantes in Du Bois's toils and see what was passing in Paris. Chapter 25. the Bastille. And now, with the reader's permission, we will enter the Bastille, that formidable building at which even the passing traveler trembled, and which, to the whole neighborhood, was an annoyance and cause of alarm. For often at night the cries of the unfortunate prisoners who were under torture might be heard piercing the thick walls, so much so that the Duchesse de Lestaquires once wrote to the governor that, if he did not prevent his patients from making such a noise, she should complain to the king. At this time, however, under the reign of Philippe d'Orleans, there were no cries to be heard. The society was select and too well-bred to disturb the repose of a lady. In a room in the Du Coin Tower on the first floor was a prisoner alone. The room was large and resembled an immense tomb lighted by two windows, furnished with an unusual allowance of bars and irons. A painted couch, two rough wooden chairs, and a black table were the whole furniture. The walls were covered with strange inscriptions, which the prisoner consulted from time to time when he was overcome by ennui. Abbé Brigod, page 517, linked to the larger image. He had, however, been but one day in the Bastille, and yet already he paced his vast chamber, examining the iron-barred doors, looking through the grated windows, listening, sighing, waiting. This day, which was Sunday, a pale sun silvered the clouds, and the prisoner watched, with a feeling of inexpressible melancholy, the walkers on the boulevards. It was easy to see that every passerby looked at the Bastille with a feeling of terror and of self-gratulation at not being within its walls. A noise of bolts and creaking hinges drew the prisoner from the sad occupation, and he saw the man enter before whom he had been taken the day before. This man, about 30 years of age, with an agreeable appearance and polite bearing, was a Governor M. Delaunay, father of that Delaunay who died at his post in '89. The prisoner, who recognized him, did not know how rare such visits were. "Monsieur de Chanley," said the governor, bowing, "I come to know if you have passed a good night, and are satisfied with the fare of the house and the conduct of the employees." Thus Delaunay, in his politeness, called the turnkeys and jailers. "Yes, monsieur, and these attentions paid to a prisoner have surprised me, I own. The bed is hard and old, but yet it is one of the best, luxury being forbidden by our rules. Your room, monsieur, is the best in the Bastille. It has been occupied by the Duc d'Angoulême, by the Marquis de Bassompierre, and by the Marshals de Luxembourg and Byron. It is here that I lodge the princes when His Majesty does me the honor to send them to me." "It is an excellent lodging," said Gaston, smiling, "though ill-furnished. Can I have some books, some paper and pens?" "Books, monsieur, are strictly forbidden, but if you very much wish to read, as many things are allowed to a prisoner who is ennuyé, come and see me. Then you can put in your pocket one of those volumes which my wife or I leave about. You will hide it from all eyes. On a second visit you will take the second volume, and to this abstraction we will close our eyes." "And paper, pens, ink," said Gaston. "I wish most particularly to write." "No one writes here, monsieur, or, at least, only to the king, the regent, the minister, or to me. But they draw, and I can let you have drawing paper and pencils." "Monsieur, how can I thank you sufficiently for your kindness?" "By granting me the request I came to make, for my visit is an interested one. I came to ask if you would do me the honor to dine with me today." "With you, monsieur? Truly, you surprise me. However, I cannot tell you how sensible I am of your courtesy, and should retain for it an everlasting gratitude if I had any prospect but death before my eyes." "Death? Monsieur, you are gloomy. You should not think of these things. Forget them and accept." "I do, monsieur." "A la bonne heure," said the governor, bowing to Gaston. "I will take back your answer." And he went out, leaving the prisoner plunged in a new train of ideas. The politeness which at first charmed the chevalier, on reflection began to arouse some suspicion. Might it not be intended to inspire him with confidence, and lead him on to betray himself and his companions? He remembered the tragic chronicle of the Bastille, the snares laid for prisoners, and that famous dungeon chamber so much spoken of, which none who had entered ever left alive. Gaston felt himself alone and abandoned. He also felt that the crime he had meditated deserved death. Did not all these flattering and strange advances conceal some snare? In fact, the Bastille had done its ordinary work. The prison acted on the prisoner, who became cold, suspicious, and uneasy. "They take me for a provincial," he thought, and they hope that, prudent in my interrogatories, I shall be imprudent in my conduct. They do not. They cannot know my accomplices, and they hope that in giving me the means of communicating with them, of writing to them, or of inadvertently speaking of them, they will get something out of me. Du Bois and Dargenson are at the bottom of this. Then Gaston thought of his friends who were waiting for him without news from him, who would not know what had become of him, or, worse still, on some false news, might act and ruin themselves. Then came the thought of his poor Helene, isolated, as he himself was, whom he had not even presented to the Duc d'Oliveris, her sole protector for the future, and who might himself be arrested or have taken flight. Then, what would become of Helene without support and pursued by that unknown person who had sought her even in the heart of Bretagne? In a paroxysm of despair at this thought, Gaston threw himself on his bed, cursing the doors and bars which imprisoned him and striking the stones with his hands. At this moment there was a noise at the door. Gaston rose hastily and met Dargenson with a law officer, and behind him an imposing escort of soldiers. He understood that he was to be interrogated. Dargenson, with his great wig, large black eyes, and dark shaggy eyebrows, made little impression on the Chevalier. He knew that in joining conspiracy he sacrificed his happiness, and that in entering the Bastille he had sacrificed his life. In this mood, it was difficult to frighten him. Dargenson asked 100 questions which Gaston refused to answer, replying only by complaints of being unjustly arrested and demanding proof. Dargenson became angry, and Gaston laughed in his face. Then Dargenson spoke of the Breton conspiracy. Gaston assumed astonishment and listened to the list of his accomplices with the greatest sang-froid. When the magistrate had finished, he thanked him for giving him intelligence of events which were quite new to him. Dargenson again lost patience and gave his ordinary angry cough. Then he passed from interrogatory to accusation. "You wanted to kill the Regent," said he, all at once, to the Chevalier. "How do you know that?" asked Gaston calmly. "Never mind how, since I know it. Then I will answer you as Agamemnon did Achilles. Why ask, since you know it?" "Monsieur, I am not jesting," said Dargenson. "Nor I," said Gaston. "I only quote Racine. Take care, monsieur. You may find this system of defense do you no good. Do you think it will be better to confess what you ask me? It is useless to deny a fact which I am aware of. Then permit me to repeat my question. What is the use of asking me about a project of which apparently you are so much better informed than I am? I want the details. Ask your police, which reads even people's most secret thoughts." Hum, said Dargenson, in a tone which, in spite of Gaston's courage, made some impression on him. "What would you say if I asked news of your friend La Jonquière?" "I should say," replied Gaston, turning pale, "that I hope the same mistake has not been made about him as about me." "Ah," said Dargenson, "that name touches you, I think. You know La Jonquière?" "I know him as a friend, recommended to me to show me Paris." "Yes, Paris and its environs. The Palais Royal, the Rue du Bac, or La Muette. He was to show you all these, was he not?" "They know all," thought Gaston. "Well, monsieur," said Dargenson, "can you find another verse from Racine which will serve as an answer to my question?" "Perhaps I might, if I knew what you meant. Certainly I wish to see the Palais Royal, for it is a curious place, and I have heard it much spoken of. As to the Rue du Bac, I know little of it. Then there only remains La Muette, of which I know nothing. I do not say that you've been there. I say that La Jonquière was to take you there. Do you dare to deny it?" "Ma foi, monsieur, I neither deny nor avow. I refer you to him. He will answer you if he think fit." "It is useless, monsieur. He has been asked and has replied." Gaston felt a shudder pass through him. He might be betrayed, but he would divulge nothing. He kept silence. Dargenson waited a moment. Then, seeing that Gaston remained silent, "Would you like to meet La Jonquière?" asked he. "You can do with me as you please, monsieur," said Gaston. "I am in your hands." But at the same time he resolved, if he were to face La Jonquière, he would crush him beneath his contempt. "It is well. As you say, I am the master, and I choose just now to apply the ordinary and extraordinary question." "Do you know what they are, monsieur?" said Dargenson, leaning on each syllable. A cold sweat bathed Gaston's temples. Not that he feared to die, but torture was worse than death. A victim of the torture was always disfigured or crippled, and the best of these alternatives was a cruel one for a young man of 25. Dargenson saw, as in a mirror, what was passing in Gaston's mind. "Hola," said the interrogator. Two men entered. "Here is a gentleman who seems to have no dislike to the question ordinary or extraordinary. Take him to the room." "It is the dark hour, the hour I expected," murmured Gaston. "Oh, my God! Give me courage." Doubtless his prayer was heard, for, making a sign that he was ready, he followed the guards with a firm step. Dargenson came behind him. They descended the stone staircase and passed the first dungeon in the tower. There they crossed 2 courts. As they crossed the second court, some prisoners, looking through their windows and seeing a gentleman well-dressed, called out, "Hola! Monsieur, you are set free then?" A woman's voice added, "Monsieur, if you are asked about us when you are free from here, say that we said nothing." A young man's voice said, "You are happy, monsieur. You will see her you love." "You are mistaken, monsieur," said the chevalier. "I am about to suffer the question." A terrible silence succeeded. Then the sad procession went over the drawbridge. Gaston was placed in a closed and locked chair and taken to the arsenal, which was separated from the Bastille by a narrow passage. Dargenson had taken the lead and awaited the prisoner, who found himself in a low room covered with damp. On the wall hung chains, collars, and other strange instruments. Chafing dishes stood on the ground, and crosses of St. Andre were in the corner. "You see this," said Dargenson, showing the chevalier 2 rings fastened into flagstones at 6 feet apart and separated by a wooden bench about 3 feet high. "In these rings are placed the head and feet of the patient. Then this trestle is placed under him, so that his stomach is 2 feet higher than his mouth. Then we pour pots of water holding 2 pints each into his mouth. The number is fixed at 8 for the ordinary, 10 for the extraordinary question. If the patient refuses to swallow, we pinch his nose so that he cannot breathe. Then he opens his mouth. Then he swallows. This question," continued he, emphasizing every detail, "is very disagreeable, and yet I do not think I should prefer the boot. Both kill sometimes. The boot disfigures a patient, and it is true that the water destroys his health for the future. But it is rare, for the prisoner always speaks at the ordinary question if he be guilty, and generally at the extraordinary if he be not." Gaston, pale and silent, listened and watched. "Do you prefer the wedges, chevalier? Here, bring the wedges." A man brought 6 wedges and showed them, still stained with blood and flattened at the edges by the blows which had been struck upon them. "Do you know the way in which these are used? The knees and ankles of the patient are pressed between 2 wooden slabs as tightly as possible. Then one of these men forces a wedge between the knees, which is followed by a larger one. There are 8 for the ordinary torture, and 2 larger for the extraordinary. These wedges, I warn you, chevalier, break bones like glass and wound the flesh insupportably." "Enough, enough," said Gaston, "unless you wish to double the torture by describing it. But if it be only to guide my choice, I leave it to you, as you must know them better than I, and I shall be grateful if you will choose the one which will kill me most quickly." Dargenson could not conceal the admiration with which Gaston's strength will inspired him. "Come," said he, "speak, and you shall not be tortured. I have nothing to say, monsieur, so I cannot. Do not play the Spartan, I advise you. One may cry, but between the cries one always speaks under torture." "Try," said Gaston. Gaston's resolute air, in spite of the struggle of nature, a struggle which was evidenced by his paleness, and by a slight nervous tremor which shook him, gave Dargenson the measure of his courage. He was accustomed to this kind of thing, and was rarely mistaken. He saw that he should get nothing out of him, yet he persisted. "Come, monsieur," said he, "it is still time. Do not force us to do you any violence." "Monsieur," said Gaston, "I swear before God who hears me, that if you put me to the torture, instead of speaking, I will hold my breath and stifle myself, if the thing be possible. Judge then if I am likely to yield to threats, where I am determined not to yield to pain." Dargenson signed to the tormentors, who approached Gaston, but as they did so, he seemed to gain new strength. With a calm smile, he helped him to remove his coat and to unfasten his cuffs. "It is to be the water, then, asked the man. "The water first," said Dargenson. They passed the cord through the rings, brought the trestles, filled the vases. Gaston did not flinch. Dargenson reflected. After about 10 minutes' thought, which seemed an age to the Chevalier, "Let him go," said Dargenson with a grunt of discontent, "and take him back to the Bastille." Chapter 26. How life passed in the Bastille while waiting for death. Gaston was inclined to thank the lieutenant of police, but he refrained. It might appear as though he had been afraid. He took his hat and coat, and returned to the Bastille as he had come. They did not like to put a man of high birth to the torture. Thought he, "They will try me and condemn me to death." But death seemed easy when divested of the preliminary agonies which the lieutenant of police had so minutely described. On re-entering his room, Gaston saw, almost with joy, all that seemed so horrible to him an hour before. The prison seemed gay, the view charming. The saddest inscriptions on the walls were madrigals compared to the menacing appearance of the room he had just quitted. The major of the Bastille came to fetch him about an hour afterward, accompanied by a turnkey. "I understand," thought Gaston. "The governor's invitation is a pretext, in such a case, to take from a prisoner the anguish of expectation. I shall, doubtless, cross some dungeon into which I shall fall and die. God's will be done." And with a firm step, he followed the major, expecting every moment to be precipitated into some secret dungeon, and murmuring Helene's name, that he might die with on his lips. But no accident following this poetical and loving invocation. The prisoner quietly arrived at the governor's door. M. Delaunay came to meet him. "Will you give me your word of honor, Chevalier," said he, "not to attempt to escape while you are in my house? It is understood, of course," he added, smiling, "that this parole is withdrawn as soon as you are taken back to your own room, and it is only a precaution to ensure me a continuance of your society." "I give you my word so far," said Gaston. "'Tis well, monsieur, enter, you are expected." And he led Gaston to a well-furnished room, where a numerous company was already assembled. "I have the honor to present to you, Le Chevalier Gaston de Chanley," said the governor. Then naming, in turn, each of the persons assembled, Le Duc de Richelieu, Le Comte de Laval, Le Chevalier de Mesnil, de Malisieux. "Ah," said Gaston, smiling, "all the Celimare conspiracy." "Except M. and Madame de Maine and the Prince of Celimare," said the Abbé Brigard, bowing. "Ah, monsieur," said Gaston, in a reproachful tone, "you forget the brave Darmental and the learned Mademoiselle Delaunay." "Darmental is kept in bed by his wounds," said Brigard. "As to Mademoiselle Delaunay," said the Chevalier de Mesnil, reddening with pleasure, "here she comes. She does us the honor of dining with us." "Present me, monsieur," said Gaston. "Among prisoners we must not make ceremonies. I reckon, therefore, on you." And de Mesnil, taking Gaston by the hand, presented him to Mademoiselle Delaunay. Gaston could not repress a certain expression of astonishment at all he saw. "Ah, Chevalier," said the governor, "I see that, like 3/4 of the inhabitants of Paris, you thought I devoured my prisoners." "No, monsieur," said Gaston, "but I certainly thought for a moment that I should not have had the honor of dining with you today." "How so?" "Is it the habit to give your prisoners an appetite for their dinners by the walk I have had today?" "Ah, yes," cried Mademoiselle Delaunay. "Was it not you who were being led to the torture just now?" "Myself, mademoiselle, and be assured that only such a hindrance would have kept me from so charming a society." "Ah, these things are not in my jurisdiction," said the governor. "Thank heaven, I am a soldier and not a judge. Do not confound arms and the toga, as Cicero says. My business is to keep you here, and to make your stay as agreeable as possible, so that I may have the pleasure of seeing you again. Dargenson's business is to have you tortured, hanged, beheaded, put on the wheel, quartered, if possible, each to his task. Mademoiselle Delaunay," added he, "dinner is ready. Will you take my arm? Your pardon, Chevalier de Mesnil. You think me a tyrant, I am sure, but as host I am privileged. Gentlemen, seat yourselves." "What a horrible thing a prison is," said Richelieu, delicately turning up his cuffs. "Slavery, irons, bolts, chains." Shall I pass you this potage à l'écrevisses? Said the governor. Yes, monsieur, said the duke. Your cook does it beautifully, and I am really annoyed that mine did not conspire with me. He might have profited by a stay in the Bastille. There is champagne, said Delaunay. I have it direct from I. You must give me the address, said Richelieu. For if the Regent leaves me my head, I shall drink no other wine than this. I have got accustomed to it during my sojourns here, and I am a creature of habit. Indeed, said the governor. You may all take example by Richelieu. He is most faithful to me, and, in fact, unless we are overcrowded, I always keep his room ready for him. That tyrant of a regent may force us all to keep a room here, said Brigod. Monsieur de Launay, said Laval in an angry tone, permit me to ask if it was by your orders that I was awoke at 2 o'clock this morning, and the meaning of this persecution? It is not my fault, monsieur. You must blame these gentlemen and ladies, who will not keep quiet in spite of all I tell them. Oui, cried all the guests. Certainly, replied the governor. You all break through rules. I am always having reports of communications, correspondences, notes, etc. Richelieu laughed, de Mesnil and Mademoiselle de Launay blushed. But we will speak of that at dessert. You do not drink M. de Chanley. No, I am listening. Say that you are dreaming. You cannot deceive me thus. And of what? Asked Milesius. Ah, it is easy to see that you are getting old, my poetical friend. Of what should M. de Chanley dream but of his love? Is it not better, M. de Chanley, cried Richelieu, to have your head separated from your body than your body from your soul? Apropos, interrupted Laval, is there any news in the court? How is the king? No politics, gentlemen, if you please, said the governor. Let us discuss poetry, arts, war, and even the Bastille if you like, but let's avoid politics. Ah, yes, said Richelieu. Let's talk of the Bastille. What have you done with Pompadour? I am sorry to say he forced me to place him in the dungeon. What had he done? Asked Gaston. He had beaten his jailer. How long has it been forbidden for a gentleman to beat his servant? Asked Richelieu. The jailers are servants of the king, le Duc, said Delaunay, smiling. Say rather the regent. A subtle distinction. A just one. Shall I pass you the chamber in M. de Laval? If you will drink with me to the health of the king. Certainly. If afterward you will drink with me to the health of the regent. Monsieur, said Laval, I am no longer thirsty. I believe it. You have just drunk some wine from His Highness's cellar. From the regent's? He sent it me yesterday, knowing that I was to have the pleasure of your company. In that case, said Brigod, throwing the contents of his glass upon the floor, no more poison. Oh, said Milesius, I did not know you were such a fanatic for the good cause. You were wrong to spill it, Abbé, said Richelieu. I know that wine, and you will hardly find such out of Palais Royal. If it were against your principles to drink it, you should have passed it to your neighbor or put it back in the bottle. Vinum in amphoram, said my schoolmaster. Le Duc, said Brigod. You do not know Latin as well as Spanish. I know French still less, and I want to learn it. Oh, that would be long and tedious. Better get admitted into the academy. It would be far easier. And do you speak Spanish? Asked Richelieu de Chanley. Report says, monsieur, that I am here for the abuse of that tongue. Monsieur, said the governor, if you return to politics, I must leave the table. Then, said Richelieu, tell Mademoiselle de Launay to talk mathematics. That will not frighten anyone. Mademoiselle de Launay started. She had been carrying on a conversation with de Mesnil, which had been greatly exciting the jealousy of Maison Rouge, who was in love with her. When dinner was over, the governor conducted each guest back to his own room, and when it came to Gaston's turn, he asked him, de Launay, if he could have some razors, instruments which appeared necessary in a place where such elegant company was assembled. Monsieur le Chevalier, said the governor, I am distressed to refuse you a thing of which I see the necessity, but it is against the rules for anyone to shave themselves unless they have special permission from the lieutenant of police. No doubt you will obtain the permission if you apply for it. But are those gentlemen whom I met here privileged, for they were well dressed and shaved? No, they all had asked permission, The Duc de Richelieu remained for a month with beard like a patriarch. I find it difficult to reconcile such severity in detail with the liberty I have just seen. Monsieur, I also have my privileges, which do not extend to giving you books, razors, or pens, but which allow me to invite to my table such prisoners as I choose to favor, always supposing that is a favor. True, it is stipulated that I shall give an account of anything which is spoken against the government, but by preventing my guests from touching on politics, I avoid the necessity of betraying them. Is it not fear, monsieur, said Gaston, that this intimacy between you and your prisoner should lead to indulgences on your part, which might be contrary to the intentions of the government? I know my duty, monsieur, and keep within its strict limits. I receive my orders from the court, and my guests, who know that I have nothing to do with them, bear me no ill will for them. I hope you will do the same. The precaution was not unnecessary, said Gaston, for doubtless I shall not long be left in the enjoyment of the pleasure I have had today. You have doubtless some protector at court? None, said Gaston. Then you must trust to chance, monsieur. I have never found it propitious. The more reason that it should weary of persecuting you. I am a Breton, and Bretons trust only in God. Take that as my meaning when I said chance. Gaston retired, charmed with the manners and attentions of M. de Launay. Chapter 27. How the night passed in the Bastille, while waiting for the day. Gaston had already, on the preceding night, asked for a light, and been told that it was against the rules. This night he did not renew the request, but went quietly to bed. His morning's visit to the torture room had given him a lesson in philosophy. Thus, rather from youthful carelessness than from force of will or courage, he slept quietly and soundly. He did not know how long he had slept when he was awoke by the sound of a small bell, which seemed to be in his room, although he could see neither bell nor ringer. It is true that the room was very dark, even by day, and doubly so at that hour. The bell, however, continued to sound distinctly, but with caution, as though it were afraid of being heard. Gaston thought the sound seemed to come from the chimney. He rose, and approaching it gently, became convinced that he was right. Presently he heard blows struck under the floor on which he stepped, at regular intervals, with some blunt instrument. It was evident that these were signals among the prisoners. Gaston went to a window to raise a curtain of green serge which intercepted the rays of the moon, and in doing so, he perceived an object hanging at the end of a string and swinging before the bars. "Good," said he. "It appears I shall have occupation, but each one in turn. Regularity above all things. Let us see what the bell wants." That was the first. Gaston returned to the chimney, extended his hand, and soon felt a string, at the end of which a bell was hanging. He pulled, but it resisted. "Good," said a voice which came down the chimney. "You are there?" "Yes," said Gaston. "What do you want?" "Parbleu, I want to talk." "Very well," said the Chevalier. "Let us talk. Are you not M. de Chanley, with whom I had the pleasure of dining today?" "Exactly so, monsieur." "In that case, I am at your service." "And I at yours." "Then have the goodness to tell me the state of the Bretagne affairs. You see there in the Bastille." "Good," said a voice, whose joyous tone Gaston could hear with ease. "Pardon me," said Gaston, "but what interest have you in these affairs?" "Why, when affairs are bad in Bretagne, they treat us well, and when they prosper we are treated badly. Thus the other day, apropos of some affair, I do not know what, which they pretended was connected with ours, we were all put in the dungeon." "Ah, diable," said Gaston to himself. "If you do not know, I do." Then he added aloud, "Well then, monsieur, be content. They are very bad, and that is perhaps the reason why we had the pleasure of dining together today." "And monsieur, are you compromised?" "I fear so. Receive my excuses." "I beg you, on the contrary, to accept mine, but I have a neighbor below who is becoming impatient, and who is striking hard enough to break the board of my floor. Permit me to reply to him." "Do so, monsieur. If my topographical calculations are correct, it must be the Marquis de Pompadour. It will be difficult to ascertain." "Not so difficult as you suppose." "How so? Does he not strike in a peculiar manner?" "Yes, has it a meaning?" "Certainly. It is our method of talking without direct communication. Have the kindness to give me the key to the vocabulary." It is not difficult. Every letter has a rank in the alphabet. Decidedly, there are 24 letters. I have never counted them, but no doubt you are right. Well, 1 blow for A, 2 for B, 3 for C, and so on. I understand, but this method of communication must be somewhat lengthy, and I see a string at my window which is getting impatient. I will strike a blow or two to show my neighbor that I have heard him, and then attend to the string. Go, monsieur, I beg, for if I am not mistaken, that string is of importance to me. But first strike 3 blows on the floor. In Bastille language, that means patience. The prisoner will then wait for a new signal. Gaston struck 3 blows with the leg of his chair, and the noise ceased. He then went to the window. It was not easy to reach the bars, but he at length succeeded in doing so and raising the string, which was gently pulled by some hand as a sign of acknowledgement. Gaston drew the packet, which would scarcely pass the bars, toward him. It contained a pot of sweetmeats and a book. He saw that there was something written on the paper which covered the pot, but it was too dark to read it. The string vibrated gently to show that an answer was expected, and Gaston, remembering his neighbor's lesson, took a broom, which he saw in the corner, and struck 3 blows on the ceiling. This, it will be remembered, meant patience. The prisoner withdrew the string, freed from its burden. Gaston returned to the chimney. Monsieur, said he. All right, what is it? I have just received, by means of a string, a pot of sweets and a book. Is not there something written on one of them? About the book I do not know, but there is on the pot. Unfortunately, it is too dark to read. Wait, said the voice. I will send a light. I thought lights were forbidden. Yes, but I have procured one. Well, then send it, for I am as impatient as you to know what is written to me. And Gaston, feeling cold, began to dress himself. All at once he saw a light in his chimney. The bell came down again, transformed into a lantern. This transformation was effected in the most simple manner. The bell turned upside down, so as to form a vessel into which some oil had been poured, and in the oil burned a little wick. Gaston found this so ingenious that for a moment he forgot both the pot and the book. Monsieur, said he to his neighbor, may I, without indiscretion, ask you how you procured the different objects with which you fabricated this lamp? Nothing more simple, monsieur. I asked for a bell, which was given me. Then I saved some oil for my breakfast and dinners, till I had a bottle full. I made wicks by unraveling one of my handkerchiefs. I picked up a pebble when I was walking in the yard. I made some tinder with burned linen. I stole some matches when I dined the governor's. Then I struck a light with a knife, which I possess, and with the aid of which I made the hole through which we correspond. Receive my compliments, monsieur. You are a man of great invention. Thank you, monsieur. Will you now see what book has been sent you, and what is written on the paper of the pot of sweetmeats? Monsieur, the book is of Virgil. That is it. She promised it to me, cried the voice, in an accent of happiness which surprised the chevalier, who could not understand that a Virgil should be so impatiently expected. Now, said the prisoner with the bell, pass on, I beg, to the pot of sweetmeats. Willingly, said Gaston, and he read, Monsieur le Chevalier, I hear from the lieutenant of the prison that you occupy the room on the first floor, which has a window immediately below mine. Prisoners should aid and help each other. Eat the sweetmeats, and pass the Virgil up to the Chevalier de Mesnil, whose chimney looks into the court. That is what is expected, said the prisoner with the bell. I was told at dinner today that I should receive this message. Then you are the Chevalier de Mesnil? Yes, monsieur, and your humble servant. I am yours, replied Gaston. I have to thank you for a pot of sweetmeats, and I shall not forget my obligation. In that case, monsieur, replied the prisoner, have the kindness to attach the bell and fasten on the Virgil instead. But if you have not the light, you cannot read. Oh, I will make another lantern. Gaston, who trusted to his neighbor's ingenuity, after the proofs he had had of it, made no further difficulties. He took the bell, which he placed in the neck of an empty bottle, and fastened on the Virgil, conscientiously replacing a letter which fell from between the leaves. Thank you, monsieur, said de Mesnil. And now, if you will reply to your neighbor below, you give me liberty? Yes, monsieur, though presently I shall make an appeal to your good nature. At your orders, monsieur. You say, then that for the letters. 1 blow for A, 24 for Z. Thank you. The Chevalier struck a blow with the handle of the broom to give notice to his neighbor that he was ready to enter into conversation with him. It was instantly answered by another blow. At the end of half an hour, the prisoners had succeeded in saying this. Good evening, monsieur. What is your name? Thank you, monsieur. I am the Chevalier Gaston de Chanley. And I, the Marquis de Pompadour. At this moment, Gaston, looking toward the windows, saw the string shaking convulsively. He struck 3 blows to ask for patience and returned to the chimney. Monsieur, said he to de Mesnil, I beg you to remember that the string at the window seems prodigiously ennuyé. Beg her to have patience. I will attend to her presently. Gaston renewed the signal for patience on the ceiling, and then returned to the chimney, and the Virgil soon returned. Monsieur, said de Mesnil, have the goodness to fasten the Virgil to the string. That is what she wants. Gaston had the curiosity to see if de Mesnil had replied to Mademoiselle de Launay. He opened the Virgil. There was no letter, but some words were underlined in pencil, and Gaston read, Mios amores and carceris oblivia longa. He understood this method of correspondence, which consisted in underlining words which, placed together, made sense. Ah, said Gaston, fastening the book to the string, it seems that I become the postman. Then he sighed deeply, remembering that he had no means of corresponding with Helene, and that she was entirely ignorant what had become of him. This gave him sympathy for the attachment of Mademoiselle de Launay and the Chevalier de Mesnil. He returned to the chimney. Monsieur, said he, your letter is dispatched. 1,000 thanks, Chevalier. Now a word more, and I will leave you to sleep in peace. Oh, say whatever you wish, monsieur. Have you spoken with the prisoner below? Yes. Who is he? The Marquis de Pompadour. I thought so. What did he say? Good evening, and asked who I was. He had no time to ask more. The method of communication is not as expeditious as it is ingenious. You must make a hole, and then you can talk as we do. What with? I will lend you my knife. Thank you. It will serve to amuse you, at least. Give it me. Here it is. And the knife fell at Gaston's feet. Now, shall I send back the bell? Yes, for my jailers might miss it tomorrow morning, and you do not want light for your conversation with Pompadour. No, certainly not. And the bell was drawn up. Now, said the Chevalier, you must have something to drink with your sweets, and I will send you a bottle of champagne. Thank you, said Gaston. Do not deprive yourself of it. I do not care much for it. Then when you have made the hole, you shall pass it to Pompadour, who is of a very different opinion. Stay, here it is. Thank you, Chevalier. Good night. Good night. And the string ascended. Gaston looked for the string at the window, and saw that it had disappeared. Ah, sighed he, the Bastille would be a palace of me, if my poor Helene were in Mademoiselle de Launay's place. Then he resumed a conversation with Pompadour, which lasted till 3 a.m, and in which he told him that he was going to pierce a hole, that they might have more direct communication. Chapter 28. A companion in the Bastille. Thus occupied, Gaston was more uneasy than ennuyé. Besides, he found another source of amusement. Mademoiselle de Launay, who obtained whatever she liked from the lieutenant, Maison Rouge, provided her requests were only accompanied by a sweet smile, obtained paper and pens. She had sent some to de Mesnil, who had shared them with Gaston, with whom he still communicated, and with Richelieu, with whom also he managed to correspond. Then Gaston formed the idea of making some verses to Helene. On his part, the Chevalier de Mesnil made some for Mademoiselle de Launay, who made them in return for him, so that the Bastille was a true Parnassus. There was only Richelieu who dishonored the society by writing prose. Time passed, as it will pass, even in the Bastille. Gaston was asked if he would like to attend Mass, and as he was deeply religious, he had assented most gladly. The next day, they came to fetch him. The Mass was celebrated in a little church, having, instead of chapels, separate closets, with bull's-eye windows into choir, so that they could only see the officiating priest at the moment of elevation, and he could not see the prisoners at all. Gaston saw de Laval and the Duc de Richelieu, who had apparently come amassed for the purpose of talking, for they knelt side by side and kept up an incessant whispering. Monsieur de Laval appeared to have some important news to communicate, and kept looking at Gaston as though he were interested in it. As neither spoke to him, however, except in way of mere salutation, he asked no questions. When the mass was over, the prisoners were taken back. As they crossed a dark corridor, Gaston passed a man who seemed to be an employee of the house. This man sought Gaston's hand and slipped a paper into it, which he put quietly into his waistcoat pocket. When he was alone in his own room, he eagerly took it out. It was written on sugar paper, with the point of sharpened coal, and contained this line: "Feign illness from ennui." It seemed to Gaston that the writing was not unknown to him, but it was so roughly traced that it was difficult to recognize. He waited for the evening impatiently, that he might consult with the Chevalier de Mesnil. At night Gaston told him what had passed, asking him, as he had a longer acquaintance with the Bastille, what he thought of the advice of his unknown correspondent. "Ma foi, though I do not understand the advice, I should follow it, for it cannot hurt you. The worst that can happen is that they may give you less to eat. But," said Gaston, "suppose they discover the illness to be feigned?" "Oh, as to that," replied de Mesnil, "the doctor is entirely ignorant, and will give you whatever you may ask for. Perhaps they will let you walk in the garden, and that would be a great amusement." Gaston consulted Mademoiselle de Launay, whose advice, by logic or sympathy, was the same as that of the Chevalier, but she added, "If they diet you, let me know, and I will send you chicken, sweets, and Bordeaux." Pompadour did not reply. The hole was not yet pierced. Gaston then played the sick man, did not eat what they sent him, relying on his neighbor's liberality. At the end of the second day, de Launay appeared. He had been told that Gaston was eating nothing, and he found the prisoner in bed. "Monsieur," he said, "I fear you are suffering and have come to see you." "You are too good, monsieur," said Gaston. "It is true that I am suffering." "What is the matter?" "Ma foi, monsieur, I do not know that there is any more proper here. I am ennuyé in this place." "What, in 4 or 5 days?" "From the first hour." "What kind of ennui do you feel? Are there several?" "Certainly, one pines for his family." "I have none." "For his mistress?" Gaston sighed. "For one's country." "Yes," said Gaston. "It is that, seeing that he must say something." The governor appeared to reflect. "Monsieur," said he, "since I have been governor of the Bastille, my only agreeable moments have been those in which I have been of service to gentlemen confided to my care by the king. I am ready to do anything for you, if you will promise to be reasonable." "I promise you, monsieur. I can put you in communication with one of your compatriots, or at least with a man who seems to know Bretagne perfectly." "Is he a prisoner?" "Like yourself." A vague sentiment passed through Gaston's mind that it must be this man who had slipped the note into his hand. "I should be very grateful if you would do this," said he. "Well, tomorrow you shall see him, but as I am recommended to be strict with him, you can only remain with him an hour, and as he may not quit his chamber, you must go to him." "As you please, monsieur," said Gaston. "Then it is decided. At 5 o'clock expect me or the major, but it is on one condition." "What is it?" "That in consideration of this distraction, you will eat a little today." "I will try." Gaston ate a little chicken, and drank a little wine to keep his promise. In the evening, he told de Mesnil what had passed. "Ma foi," said he, "you are lucky." The Count of Laval had the same idea, and all he got was to be put into a room in the Tower du Trésor, where he said he was dreadfully dull, and had no amusement but speaking to the prison apothecary. "Diable," said Gaston, "why did you not tell me that before?" "I have forgotten it." This tardy recollection troubled Gaston somewhat. Placed as he was between Pompadour, de Mesnil, and Mademoiselle de Launay, his position was tolerable. If he were to be removed, he would be really attacked by the malady he had feigned. At the appointed time the major of the Bastille came, and led Gaston across several courts, and they stopped at the Tower du Trésor. Every tower had its separate name. In the room number 1 was a prisoner asleep on a folding bed, with his back turned to the light. The remains of his dinner were by him on a worn-out wooden table, and his costume, torn in many places, indicated a man of low station. Ways, said Gaston. Did they think that I was so fond of Britannia, that any fellows who happen to have been born at Nimes or at Penmarch may be raised to the rank of my piloties? No, this fellow is too ragged and seems to eat too much, but as one must not be too capricious in prison, let us make use of the hour. I will recount my adventure to Mademoiselle de Launay, and she will put it into verse for the Chevalier de Mesnil. Gaston was now alone with the prisoner, who yawned and turned in his bed. Ugh, how cold it is in this cursed Bastille, said he, rubbing his nose. That voice, that gesture, it is he, said Gaston, and he approached the bed. What? Cried the prisoner, sitting up in bed and looking at Gaston. You hear M. de Chanley? Captain La Jonquière, cried Gaston. Myself, that is to say, I am the person you name, but my name is changed. To what? First Tresser. What? First Tresser. It is a custom in the Bastille for the prisoner to take the name of his room. That saved the turnkey the trouble of remembering names. However, if the Bastille be full and 2 or 3 prisoners in the same room, they take 2 numbers. For example, I am First Tresser. If you were put here, you would be First Tresser number 2. Another would be First Tresser number 3. The jailers have a kind of Latin literature for this. Yes, I understand, said Gaston, watching La Jonquière intently. Then you are a prisoner? Parbleu, you see for yourself. I presume we are neither of us here for pleasure. Then we are discovered. I am afraid so. Thanks to you. How to me? Cried La Jonquière, feigning surprise. No jokes, I beg. You have made revelations, traitor. Aye. Come, young man, you are mad. You ought not to be in the Bastille, but in the Petites Maisons. Do not deny it, M. Darganson told me. Darganson. Pardieu, the authority is good. And do you know what he told me? No. That you had denounced me. Monsieur. Well, what then? Are we to cut each other's throats because the police has followed out its trade and lied? But how could he discover? I ask the same of you. But one thing is certain. If I had told anything, I should not be here. You have not seen much of me, but you ought to know that I should not be fool enough to give information gratis. Revelations are bought and sold, monsieur, and I know that Du Bois pays high for them. Perhaps you are right, said Gaston, but at least let us bless the chance which brings us together. Certainly. You do not appear enchanted, nevertheless. I am only moderately so, I confess. Captain. Ah, monsieur, how bad-tempered you are. I. Yes, you are always getting angry. I like my solitude. That does not speak. Monsieur. Again. Now listen. Do you believe, as you say, that chance has brought us together? What should it be? Some combination of our jailers, of Dargansons, or perhaps Du Bois's. Did you not write to me? Aye. Telling me to feign illness from ennui. And how should I have written on what, by whom? Gaston reflected, and this time it was La Jonquière who watched him. Then, said the captain presently, I think, on the contrary, that it is to you we owe the pleasure of meeting in the Bastille. To me, monsieur. Yes, Chevalier, you are too confiding. I give you that information in case you leave here, but more particularly in case you remain here. Thank you. Have you noticed if you were followed? No. A conspirator should never look before, but always behind him. Gaston confessed that he had not taken this precaution. And the Duke, asked La Jonquière, is he arrested? I know not. I was going to ask you. Peste, that is disagreeable. You took a young woman to him. You know that. Ah, my dear fellow, everything becomes known. Did not she give the information? Ah, woman. This was a brave girl, monsieur. I would answer for her discretion, courage, and devotion. Yes, I understand. We love her. So she is honey and gold. What an idea of a conspiracy. You must have to take a woman to the chief of the plot. But I told her nothing, and she could know no secrets of mine, but such as she may have surprised. She has a keen eye, and if she knew my projects, I am convinced she would never have spoken. Oh, monsieur, without counting her natural disposition to that exercise, can we not always make a woman speak? Some of might have said, without any preparation, your love for M. de Chanley will lose your head. I will wager that she will speak. There is no danger. She loves me too much. That is the very reason, pardieu, that she would chatter like a magpie, and that we are both caged up. However, let's drop this. What do you do here? Amuse myself. Amuse yourself. How? With making verses, eating sweets, and making holes in the floor. Holes in the king's boards, said La Jonquière. Oh, that is good to know. Does not M. de Launay scold? He does not know it. Besides, I am not singular. Everybody makes a hole in something. One is floor, the other is chimney, the next is wall. Do you not make holes in something? La Jonquière looked to see if Gaston were not laughing at him. But now, monsieur, said La Jonquière, let us speak seriously. Are you condemned to death? I? Yes, you. You say that coolly. It is a habit in the Bastille. There are 20 here condemned to death, and not a bit the worse for it. I have been interrogated. Ah, you see. But I do not believe I am condemned. That will come. My dear captain, do you know that, although you do not look so, you are marvelously merry? You think so? Yes. Does it astonish you? I did not know you were so brave. Then you would regret life? I confess it. I only want one thing to make me happy, and that is to live. And you became a conspirator with a chance of happiness before you? I do not understand you. I thought people conspire from despair, as they marry when they have no other resource. When I joined the conspiracy, I did not love. And afterward, I would not draw back. Bravo. That is what I call character. Have you been tortured? No, but I had a narrow escape. Then you will be. Why so? Because I have been, and it will be unfair to treat us differently. Look at the state of my clothes. Which did they give you? Asked Gaston, shuddering at the recollection of what had passed between Darganson and himself. The water. They made me drink a barrel and a half. My stomach was like a bladder. I did not think I could have held so much. And did you suffer much? Asked Gaston with interest. Yes, but my temperament is robust. The next day I thought no more of it. It is true that since then I have drunk a great deal of wine. If you have to choose, select the water. It cleans. All the mixtures doctors give us are only a means of making us swallow water. Fangan says the best doctor he ever heard was Dr. Sangrado. He only existed in Lusage's brain, or he would have done miracles. You know Fangan? Asked Gaston, surprised. By reputation. Besides, I have read his works. But do you intend to persist in saying nothing? Doubtless. You are right. I should tell you, if you regret life so much as you say, to whisper a few words to M. Darganson, but he is a talker who would reveal your confession. I will not speak, be assured. These are points on which I do not need strengthening. I believe it, pardieu. You seem to me like Sardanapalus in your tower. Here I have only M. de Laval, who takes medicine 3 times a day. It is an amusement he has invented. Well, tastes differ, and perhaps he wants to get accustomed to the water. But did you not say I should certainly be condemned? Do you wish to know the whole truth? Yes. Well, Darganson told me that you were. Gaston turned pale, in spite of his courage. La Jonquière remarked it. However, said he, I believe you might save yourself by certain revelations. Why? Do you think I should do what you refused? Our characters and our positions are different. I am no longer young. I am not in love. I do not leave a mistress in tears. Gaston sighed. You see, there is a great difference between us. When did you ever hear me sigh like that? If I die, His Excellency will take care of Helene. And if he be arrested? You are right. Then God will protect her. Decidedly you are young, said La Jonquière. Explain. Suppose His Excellency be not arrested? Well, what age is he? 45 or 6, I suppose. And if he fell in love with Helene, is not that her name? The Duke fall in love with her. He to whose protection I confided her. It would be infamous. The world is full of infamy. That is how it gets on. Oh, I will not dwell on such a thought. I do not tell you to dwell on it. I only suggested it for you to make what use you liked of. Hush, said Gaston. Someone is coming. Have you asked for anything? No. Then the time allowed for your visit is out. And La Jonquière threw himself quickly on his bed. The bolts creaked. The door opened and the governor appeared. Well, monsieur, said he to Gaston, does your companion suit you? Yes, particularly as I know Captain La Jonquière. That makes my task more delicate. But however, I made you an offer and I will not draw back. I will permit one visit daily, at any hour you please. Shall be morning or evening? Gaston looked at La Jonquière. Say 5 in the evening, said La Jonquière quickly. In the evening at 5 o'clock, if you please. The same as today, then? Yes. It shall be as you desire, monsieur. Gaston and La Jonquière exchanged a glance, and the Chevalier was taken back to his chamber. Chapter 29. The Sentence. It was 6:30 and quite dark. The Chevalier's first act on being left in his room was to run to the chimney. Chevalier, said he. De Mesnil replied, I have paid my visit. Well, I have found an acquaintance, if not a friend, a new prisoner, of the same date as myself. His name? Captain La Jonquière. What? Do you know him? Yes. Then do me a favor. What is he? Oh, an enemy of the Regent's. Are you sure? Quite. He was in our conspiracy, and only withdrew because we preferred abduction to assassination. Then he was... for assassination. That is it, murmured Gaston. He is a man to be trusted. If it be the same, I mean, he lives in the Rue Bourdonnais at the Muids d'Amour. The same. Then he is a safe man. That is well, said Gaston, for he holds the lives of 4 brave gentlemen in his hands, of whom you are one. No, I put myself aside, for it seems all is over with me. How all is over? Yes, I am condemned. To what? To death. There was a moment's silence. Impossible! Cried the Chevalier de Mesnil at length. Why impossible? Because, if I be not mistaken, your affair is attached to ours. It follows on it. Well, our affair is prospering. Yours cannot go wrong. Mademoiselle de Launay wrote me this yesterday. She was walking with Maison Rouge, who, as you know, loves her, and at whom we both laugh, but who is useful to us. On pretext of illness, she asked, as you did, for a doctor. He told her that the prison doctor was at her orders. I must tell you that we have known this doctor intimately. His name is Herman. However, she did not hope to get much out of him, for he is a timid man. But when he entered the garden where she was walking and gave her consultation in the open air, he said to her, Hope! In the mouth of anyone else this would have been nothing, and as it was a vast deal. Since we are told to hope, you have nothing to fear, as our affairs are intimately connected. However, said Gaston, La Jonquière seemed sure of what he said. At this moment Pompadour knocked. Gaston went to the hole, which with the aid of his knife, he soon made practicable. Asked the Chevalier de Mesnil if he does not know anything more from Mademoiselle de Launay. About what? One of us. I overheard some words between the governor and the major at my door. They were condemned to death. Gaston shuddered. Be easy, Marquis. I believe they spoke of me. Diable, that would not make me easy at all. Firstly, because we have quickly become friends, and I should be grieved if anything were to happen to you. And secondly, because what happened to you might well happen to us, our affairs being so similar. And you believe that Mademoiselle de Launay could remove your doubts. Yes, her windows look on the arsenal. Well, she would have seen if there were anything new going on there today. Ah, she is striking now. At that moment, Mademoiselle de Launay struck 2 blows, which meant attention. Gaston replied by one, which meant that he was listening. Then he went to the window. A minute after the string appeared with a letter. Gaston took the letter and went to the hole to Pompadour. Well, said the Marquis. A letter, replied Gaston. What does she say? I cannot see, but I will send it to Mesnil, who will read it. Make haste. Pardon, said Gaston. I am as anxious as you. And he ran to the chimney. The string, he cried. You have a letter. Yes, have you a light? Yes. Lower the string. Gaston tied on the letter, which was drawn up. It is for you and not for me, said to Mesnil. Never mind, read it, and tell me what it is. I have no light, and it would lose time to send me one. Mademoiselle de Launay, page 538. Link to larger image. You permitting me? Certainly. A moment's silence. Well, said Gaston. Diable. Bad news, is it not? Judge for yourself. And de Mesnil read, My dear neighbor, some judge extraordinary has arrived at the arsenal this evening. I recognize Darginson's livery. We shall know more soon, when I see the doctor. 1,000 remembrances to de Mesnil. That is what La Jonquière told me. It is I that am condemned. Bah! Chevalier, said de Mesnil, you are too easily alarmed. Not at all. I know well what to think. And then, hark! What? Silence. Someone is coming. And Gaston went away from the chimney. The door opened, and the major and lieutenant, with 4 soldiers, came for Gaston, who followed them. I am lost, murmured he. Poor Helene. And he raised his head with the intrepidity of a brave man, who, knowing death was near, went boldly to meet it. Monsieur, said Darginson, your crime has been examined by the tribunal, of which I am the president. In the preceding sittings you were permitted to defend yourself. If you were not granted advocates, it was not with the intention of inquiry or defense, but, on the contrary, because it was useless to give you the extreme indulgence of a tribunal charge to be severe. I do not understand you. Then I will be more explicit. Discussion would have made one thing evident, even in the eyes of your defenders, that you are a conspirator and an assassin. How could you suppose that with these points established indulgence would be shown you? But here you are before us. Every facility will be given for your justification. If you ask a delay, you shall have it. If you wish researches, they shall be made. If you speak, you have the reply, and it will not be refused you. I understand, and thank the tribunal for this kindness, replied Gaston. The excuse it gives me for the absence of a defender seems sufficient. I have not to defend myself. Then you do not wish for witnesses, delays, or documents? I wish my sentence, that is all. Do not be obstinate. Chevalier, make some confessions. I have none to make, for in all my interrogatories you have not made one precise accusation. And you wish? Certainly. I should like to know of what I am accused. I will tell you. You came to Paris, appointed by the Republican Committee of Nantes, to assassinate the Regent. You were referred to one La Jonquière, your accomplice, now condemned with you. Gaston felt that he turned pale at these true accusations. This might be true, monsieur, said he, but you could not know it. A man who wishes to commit such a deed does not confess it till it be accomplished. No, but his accomplices confess for him. That is to say, that La Jonquière denounces me. I do not refer to La Jonquière, but the others. The others, cried Gaston. Are there, then, others arrested beside La Jonquière and myself? Yes. Messrs. de Pontcallec, de Talouet, du Coetic, and de Montlouis. I do not understand, said Gaston, with a vague feeling of terror, not for himself, but for his friends. What? Do you not understand that Messrs. de Pontcallec, de Talouet, du Coetic, and de Montlouis are now being tried at Nantes? Arrested? Cried Gaston. Impossible. Yes, said Darginson. You thought that the province would revolt rather than allow its defenders, as you rebels call yourselves, to be arrested. Well, the province has said nothing. The province has gone on singing, laughing, and dancing, and is already asking where they will be beheaded in order to hire windows. That does not say that they have accused me. They told all we wanted to know, and your culpability is the result. In that case, if they have told all you want to know, you have no need of my confession. Is that your final answer? Yes. Officer, read the sentence. The officer read, as the result of the investigation commenced on the 19th of February, that M. Gaston de Chanley came from Nantes to Paris with the intention of committing the crime of murder on the person of His Royal Highness Monseigneur, the Regent of France, which was to have been followed by a revolt against the authority of the king. The extraordinary commission instituted to inquire into this crime has adjudged the Chevalier Gaston de Chanley worthy of the punishment for high treason, the person of the Regent being as inviolable as that of the king. In consequence, we ordain that the Chevalier Gaston de Chanley be degraded from all his titles and dignities, that he and his posterity be declared ignoble in perpetuity, that his goods be confiscated, his woods cut down to a height of 6 feet from the ground, and he himself beheaded on the Greve, or wheresoever it shall please the provost to appoint, saving his majesty's pardon. Gaston was pale, but still as marble. And when am I to be executed? Asked he. As soon as it may please his majesty. Gaston felt a cloud pass before his eyes, and his ideas became confused. But this soon vanished, and the serenity of his bearing returned. The blood rushed back to his cheeks, and a contemptuous smile settled on his lips. "It is well, monsieur," said he. "At whatever moment His Majesty's order may arrive, it will find me prepared. But I wish to know whether I may not see some persons who are very dear to me before I die, and I wish to ask a favor of the king." Dargonson's eyes glistened with malignant joy. "Monsieur," said he, "I told you that you would be treated with indulgence. You might therefore have spoken sooner, and perhaps His Highness's kindness might not have waited for a prayer." "You mistake me, monsieur," said Gaston with dignity. "Neither His Majesty's honor nor mine will suffer from the favor which I shall ask." "What would you ask?" said Dargonson. "Speak, and I will tell you at once if there be a chance of your request being granted. I ask, first, that my titles and dignities, which are not very great, should not be cancelled, as I have no posterity. I am alone in the world. My name only survives me, but as that name is only noble and not illustrious, it would not survive long. This is quite a royal favor, monsieur. His Majesty alone can and will reply. Is that all you wish to ask?" "No. I have another request to make, but I do not know to whom I should apply. First to me, monsieur, in my character of lieutenant of police. I shall see if I can grant it, or if I must refer it to His Majesty. Well then, monsieur, I desire to see Mademoiselle Helene de Chaverny, ward of His Excellency the Duc d'Olivarez, and also the Duke himself." Dargonson, at this request, made a singular gesture, which Gaston interpreted as one of hesitation. "Monsieur," said Gaston, "I would see them in any place, and for as short a time as may be thought advisable." "You shall see them," said Dargonson. "Ah, monsieur," said Gaston, stepping forward as though to take his hand, "you lay me under the greatest obligation. On one condition, however, monsieur." "What is it?" "There is no condition compatible with my honor that I will not accept in exchange for so great a favor. You must tell no one of your condemnation, and this on your word as a gentleman." "I accede to that all the more willingly," said Gaston, "as one of the persons named would certainly die if she knew of it." "Then all is well. Have you anything further to say?" "Nothing, monsieur, except to beg that you will record my denials. They are already firmly attached. Officer, hand the papers to Monsieur de Chanley, that he may read and sign them." Gaston sat down by a table, and, while Dargonson and the judges chatted around him, he carefully perused the papers and the reporter's own answers to the interrogatory. Then, finding all correct, he signed. "Monsieur," said he, "here are the documents. Shall I have the pleasure of seeing you again?" "I do not think so," said Dargonson, with that brutality which was a terror of those who were subjected to him. "Then to our meeting in another world, monsieur." The major led Gaston to his own room. Chapter 30. The Family Feud. When Gaston returned to his room, he was obliged to answer the questions of de Mesnil and Pompadour, who were waiting to hear news from him. But, in compliance with his promise made to Dargonson, he did not mention his sentence, but simply announced a severer interrogatory than before. But as he wished to write some letters, he asked de Mesnil for a light. De Mesnil sent him a candle. Things were progressing, it may be remarked. Maison Rouge could refuse nothing to Mademoiselle de Launay, and she shared all with de Mesnil, who, in his turn, again shared with his neighbors Gaston and Richelieu. Gaston doubted whether, In spite of Dargenson's promise, he would be allowed to see Helene, but he knew that at least he should see a priest before he died. There could be no doubt that the priest would forward 2 letters for him. As he began to write, Mademoiselle Delaunay made a signal that she had something to send him. It was a letter. Gaston read, "Our friend, for you are our friend, and now we have no secrets from you. Tell de Mesnil the famous hope I conceived after the word that hermit said to me." Gaston's heart beat. Might not he also find in this letter some ground for hope? Had they not said that his fate could not be separated from the others? It is true that those who had said so did not know of his conspiracy. He read on. "An hour ago the doctor came, accompanied by Maison Rouge. From the latter's manner I drew the most favorable augury. However, when I asked to speak in private, or at least to whisper to the doctor, he made some difficulties, which I removed with a smile. 'At least,' said he, 'no one must know that I am out of hearing. I should lose my place if it were known how weak I am.' This tone of love and interest combined seemed to me so grotesque that I laughingly promised him what he asked. You see how I keep my promise." He went to a distance, and Herman approached, then commenced a dialogue, wherein the gestures meant one thing while the voice declared another. "You have good friends," said Herman, "friends in good places, who are greatly interested for you." I naturally thought of Madame de Maine. "Ah, monsieur," I cried, "have you anything for me?" "Hush," said Herman. Judge how my heart beat. Gaston felt his own beating vigorously. "And what have you to give me?" "Oh, nothing myself, but you will have the object agreed upon." "But what is the object? Speak." "The beds in the Bastille are known to be bad, and particularly badly covered, and I am commissioned to offer you what?" "A coverlet." I burst out laughing. The devotion my friends were shown in preventing my catching cold. "My dear Monsieur Herman," said I, "in my present position, it would be better if my friends were to occupy themselves less about my feet and more about my head." "It is a female friend," said he. "Who is it?" "Mademoiselle de Charolais," said Herman, lowering his voice so that I could scarcely hear him. Then he withdrew. "I, my dear Chevalier, am now waiting for Mademoiselle de Charolais's coverlet. Tell this to de Mesnil. It will make him laugh." Gaston sighed. The gaiety of those around him weighed heavily on his heart. It was a new torture which they had invented in forbidding him to confide his fate to anyone. It seemed to him that he should have found consolation in the tears of his 2 neighbors. He had not the courage to read the letter to de Mesnil, so he passed it on to him, and a moment after heard shouts of laughter. At this moment Gaston was saying adieu to Helene. After passing a part of the night in writing, he slept. At 25 one must sleep, even if it be just before death. In the morning Gaston's breakfast was brought at the usual hour, but he remarked that it was more recherché than usual. He smiled at this attention, and as he was finishing, the governor entered. Gaston with a rapid glance interrogated his expression, which was calm and courteous as ever. Was he also ignorant of the sentence, or was he wearing a mask? "Monsieur," said he, "will you take the trouble to descend to the council chamber?" Gaston rose. He seemed to hear a buzzing in his ears, for to a man condemned to death every injunction which he does not understand is a torture. "May I know the reason, monsieur?" asked Gaston, in so calm a tone that it was impossible to detect his real emotion. "To receive a visit," replied the governor. "Yesterday, after the interrogatory, did you not ask the lieutenant of police to be allowed to see someone?" Gaston started. "And is it that person?" asked he. "Yes, monsieur." Gaston had asked for 2 persons. The governor only announced one. Which one was it? He had not the courage to ask, and silently followed the governor. "Remain here, monsieur. The person whom you expect is coming," said the governor, who bowed and went out. Gaston ran to the window, which was barred, and looked out. There was a sentinel before it. The door opened, and Gaston, turning round, faced the Duc d'Olivarez. "Ah, monsieur," cried he, "how good of you to come to request of a poor prisoner." "It was a duty," replied the Duke. "Besides, I had to thank you." "Me?" said Gaston, astonished. "What have I done to merit your Excellency's thanks?" "You have been interrogated, taken to the torture chamber, given to understand that you might save yourself by naming your accomplices, and yet you kept silence." I made an engagement and kept it. That does not deserve any thanks, Monseigneur. And now, monsieur, tell me if I can serve you in anything. First, tell me about yourself. Have you been molested, Monseigneur? Not at all. And if all the Bretons are as discreet as you, I doubt not that my name will never be mentioned in these unfortunate debates. Oh, I will answer for them as for myself, Monseigneur. But can you answer for La Jonquière? La Jonquière, repeated the Duke. Yes. Do you not know that he is arrested? Yes, I heard something of it. Well, I ask you, Monseigneur, what you think of him. I can tell you nothing, except that he has my confidence. If so, he must be worthy of it, Monseigneur. That is all I wish to know. Then come to the request you had to make. Have you seen the young girl I brought to your house? Mademoiselle Helene de Chaverny? Yes. Well, monsieur, I had not time to tell you then, but I tell you now that I have loved her for a year. The dream of that year has been to consecrate my life to her happiness. I say the dream, Monseigneur, for on awaking, I saw that all hope of happiness was denied me, and yet to give this young girl a name, a position, a fortune at the moment of my arrest, she was about to become my wife. Without the knowledge of her parents or the consent of her family, cried the Duke. She had neither, Monseigneur, and was probably about to be sold to some nobleman when she left the person who had been set to watch her. But who informed you that Mademoiselle Helene de Chaverny was to be the victim of a shameful bargain? What she herself told me of a pretended father, who concealed himself, of diamonds which had been offered to her. Then, do you know where I found her, Monseigneur? In one of those houses destined to the pleasures of our rays. She, an angel of innocence and purity. In short, Monseigneur, this young girl fled with me, in spite of the cries of her duenna, in broad daylight, and in the face of servants who surrounded her. She stayed 2 hours alone with me. And though she is as pure as on the day when she received her mother's first kiss, she is not the less compromised. I wish this projected marriage to take place. In your situation, monsieur, a still greater reason. But perhaps you may deceive yourself as to the punishment reserved for you. It is probably the same which, under similar circumstances, was inflicted on the Count de Chalais, the Marquis de Cinq-Mars, and the Chevalier Louis de Rohan. Then you are prepared even for death, monsieur. I prepared for it from the day I joined the conspiracy. The conspirator's only excuse is that, while robbing others of their lives, he risks his own. And what will this young girl gain by the marriage? Monseigneur, though not rich, I have some fortune. She is poor. I have a name, and she has none. I would leave her my name and fortune. And with that intention, I have already petitioned the king that my goods may not be confiscated, nor my name declared infamous. Were it known for what reason I asked this, it would doubtless be granted. If I die without making her my wife, she will be supposed to be my mistress, and will be dishonored, lost, and there will be no future for her. If, on the contrary, by your protection or that of your friends, and that protection I earnestly implore, we are united, no one can reproach her. The blood which flows for a political offense does not disgrace a family. No shame will fall on my widow, and if she cannot be happy, she will at least be independent and respected. This is the favor which I have to ask, Monseigneur. Is it in your power to obtain it for me? The Duke went to the door and struck 3 blows. Maison Rouge appeared. Ask M. Delaunay from me, said the Duke, whether the young girl who is at the door of my carriage may come in. Her visit, as he knows, is authorized. You will have the kindness to conduct her here. What? Monseigneur, Helene is here at the door. Were you not promised that she should come? Yes, but seeing you alone, I lost all hope. I wish to see you first, thinking that you might have many things to say which you would not wish her to hear, for I know all. You know all? What do you mean? I know that you were taken to the arsenal yesterday. Monseigneur, I know that you found Dargenson there, and that he read your sentence. Mon Dieu, I know that you are condemned to death, and that you were bound not to speak of it to anyone. Oh, Monseigneur, silence. One word of this would kill Helene. Be easy, monsieur, but let us see. Is there no way of avoiding this execution? Days would be necessary to prepare and execute a plan of escape, and I scarcely have hours. I did not speak of escape. I ask if you have no excuse to give for your crime. My crime, cried Gaston, astonished to hear his accomplice use such a word. Yes, replied the Duke. You know that men stigmatize murder with this name under all circumstances, but posterity often judges differently, and sometimes calls a grand deed. I have no excuse to give, Monseigneur, except that I believe the death of the Regent to be necessary to the salvation of France. Yes, replied the Duke, smiling, but you will see that that is scarcely the excuse to offer to Philippe d'Orleans. I wanted something personal. Political enemy of the Regent's as I am, I know that he is not considered a bad man. Men say that he is merciful, and that there have been no executions during his reign. You forget Count Horn. He was an assassin. And what am I? There is this difference. Count Horn murdered in order to rob. I neither can nor will ask anything of the Regent, said Gaston. Not you. Personally, I know, but your friends. If they had a plausible pretense to offer, perhaps the prince himself might pardon you. I have none, Monseigneur. It is impossible, monsieur. Permit me to say so. A resolution such as you have taken must proceed from a sentiment of some kind, either hatred or vengeance. And stay, I remember you told La Jonquière, who repeated it to me, that there was a family feud. Tell me the cause. It is useless, Monseigneur, to tire you with that. It would not interest you. Never mind, tell it me. Well, the Regent killed my brother. The Regent killed your brother. How so? It is impossible, Monsieur de Gaston, said the Duc d'Olivarez. Yes, killed, if from the effect we go to the cause. Explain yourself. How could the Regent do this? My brother, who, being 15 years of age when my father died, 3 months before my birth, stood to me in the place of that father, and a mother, who died when I was still in the cradle. My brother loved a young girl who was brought up in a convent by the orders of the prince. Do you know in what convent? The Duke murmured some words which Gaston could not hear. My brother, a relation of the abbess, had seen this young girl and asked her hand in marriage. The prince's consent to this union had been asked, and he made a pretense of granting it, when this young girl, seduced by her so-called protector, suddenly disappeared. For 3 months my brother hoped to find her, but all his searches were vain. He found no trace of her, and in despair he sought death in the battle of Ramillies. And what was the name of this girl? No one ever knew, Monseigneur. To speak her name was to dishonor it. It was doubtless she, murmured the Duke. It was Aline's mother, and your brother was called, added he aloud, Olivier de Chanley, Monseigneur. Olivier de Chanley, repeated the Duke in a low voice. I knew the name of de Chanley was not strange to me. Then aloud, Continue, monsieur, I listen to you. You do not know what a family hatred is in a province like ours. I had lavished upon my brother all the love which would have fallen to the share of my father and mother, and now I suddenly found myself alone in the world. I grew up in isolation of heart and in the hope of revenge. I grew up among people who were constantly repeating, It was the Duc d'Orleans who killed your brother. Then the Duke became regent. The Breton League was therefore organized. I was one of the first to join it. You know the rest. You see that there is nothing in all this which has any interest for your excellency. You mistake, monsieur. Unfortunately, the regent has to reproach himself with many such faults. You see, therefore, said Gaston, that my destiny must be accomplished, and that I can ask nothing of this man. You are right, monsieur. Whatever is done must be done without you. At this moment the door opened, and Maison Rouge appeared. Well, monsieur, asked the Duke, the governor has an order from the lieutenant of police to admit Mademoiselle Helene de Chaverny. Shall I bring her here? Monseigneur, said Gaston, looking at the Duke with an air of entreaty. Yes, monsieur, said he. I understand. Grief and love do not need witnesses. I will come back to fetch Mademoiselle Helene. The permission is for half an hour, said Maison Rouge. Then at the end of that time I will return, said the Duke, and bowing to Gaston, he went out. An instant after the door opened again, and Helene appeared, trembling and questioning Maison Rouge. But he retired without replying. Helene looked round and saw Gaston, and for a few minutes all their sorrows were forgotten in a close and passionate embrace. "And now," cried Helene, her face bathed in tears. "Well, and now?" asked Gaston. "Alas, to see you here, in prison," murmured Helene with an air of terror. "Here, where I dare not speak freely, where we may be watched, overheard. Do not complain, Helene, for this is an exception in our favor. A prisoner is never allowed to press one who is dear to him to his heart. The visitor generally stands against that wall. The prisoner against this. A soldier is placed between, and a conversation must be fixed beforehand. To whom do we owe this favor? Doubtless to the Regent. For yesterday, when I asked permission of Monsieur Dargenson, he said that it was beyond his power to grant, and that he must refer it to the Regent. But now that I see you again, Gaston, tell me all that has passed in this age of tears and suffering." "Ah, tell me. But my presentiments did not deceive me. You were conspiring. Do not deny it. I know it." "Yes. Helene, you know that we Bretons are constant both in our loves and our hatreds. A league was organized in Bretagne, in which all our nobles took part. Could I act differently from my brothers? I ask you, Helene, could I, or ought I to have done so? Would you not have despised me if, when you had seen all Bretagne under arms, I alone had been inactive, a whip in my hand while others held the sword?" "Oh, yes, you are right. But why did you not remain in Bretagne with the others?" "The others are arrested also, Helene." "Then you have been denounced, betrayed." "Probably. But sit down, Helene. Now that we are alone, let me look at you and tell you that you are beautiful, that I love you. How have you been in my absence? Has the Duke?" "Oh, if you only knew how good he is to me. Every evening he comes to see me, and his care and attention." "And," said Gaston, who thought a suggestion of the false La Jonquière, "nothing suspicious in those attentions?" "What do you mean, Gaston?" "That the Duke is still young, and that, as I told you just now, you are beautiful." "Oh, heaven! No, Gaston. This time there is not a shadow of doubt. And when he was there near me, as near as you are now, there were moments when it seemed as if I had found my father." "Poor child." "Yes, by a strange chance, for which I cannot account. There is a resemblance between the Duke's voice and that of the man who came to see me at Rambouillet. It struck me at once." "You think so?" said Gaston, in an abstracted tone. "What are you thinking of, Gaston?" asked Helene. "You seem scarcely to hear what I am saying to you." "Helene, every word you speak goes to the inmost depth of my heart. You are uneasy, I understand. To conspire is to stake your life. But be easy, Gaston. I have told the Duke that if you die, I shall die too." Gaston started. "You are an angel," said he. "Oh, my God!" cried poor Helene. "How horrible to know that the man I love runs a danger. All the more terrible for being uncertain. To feel that I am powerless to aid him, and that I can only shed tears when I would give my life to save him." Gaston's face lit up with a flush of joy. It was the first time that he had ever heard such words from the lips of his beloved, and under the influence of an idea which had been occupying him for some minutes. "Yes, dearest," said he, taking her hand, "you can do much for me." "What can I do?" "You can become my wife." Helene started. "I your wife, Gaston?" cried she. "Yes, Helene. This plan, formed in our liberty, may be executed in captivity. Helene, my wife before God and man, in this world and the next, for time and for eternity. You can do this for me, Helene, and am I not right in saying that you can do much?" "Gaston," said she, looking at him fixedly, "you are hiding something from me." It was Gaston's turn to start now. "I," said he, "what should I conceal from you? You told me you saw Dargenson yesterday? Well, what then?" "Well, Gaston," said Helene, turning pale, "you are condemned." Gaston took a sudden resolution. "Yes," said he, "I am condemned to exile, and egotist as I am, I would bind you to me by indissoluble ties before I leave France." "Is that the truth, Gaston?" "Yes. Have you the courage to be my wife, Helene? To be exiled with me?" "Can you ask it, Gaston?" said she, her eyes lighted with enthusiasm. "Exile? I thank thee, my God. I, who would have accepted an eternal prison with you, and have thought myself blessed, I may accompany follow you? Oh, this condemnation is, indeed, a joy after what we feared. Gaston, Gaston, at length we shall be happy. Yes, Helene, said Gaston with an effort. Picture my happiness, cried Helene. To me, France is the country where you are. Your love is the only country I desire. I know I shall have to teach you to forget Bretagne, your friends, and your dreams of the future, but I will love you so that it will be easy for you to forget them. Gaston could do nothing but cover her hands with kisses. Is the place of your exile fixed? Said she. Tell me, when do you go? Shall we go together? My Helene, replied Gaston, it is impossible. We must be separated for a time. I shall be taken to the frontier of France. I do not as yet know which, and set free, once out of the kingdom, you shall rejoin me. Oh, better than that, Gaston, better than that. By means of the Duke, I will discover the place of your exile, and instead of joining you there, I will be there to meet you. As you step from the carriage which brings you, you shall find me waiting to soften the pain of your dues to France. And then death alone is irretrievable. Later, the king may pardon you. Later still, and the action punished today may be looked upon as a deed to be rewarded. Then we will return. Then nothing need keep us from Bretagne, the cradle of our love, the paradise of our memories. Oh, continued she, in an accent of mingled love and impatience, tell me, Gaston, that you share my hopes, that you are content, that you are happy. Yes, Helene, I now am happy indeed. For now, and only now, I know by what an angel I am beloved. Yes, dearest, 1 hour of such love as yours, and then death will be better than a whole life with the love of any other. Well, exclaimed Helene, her whole mind and so earnestly fixed on the new future which was open before her. What will they do? Will they let me see you again before your departure? When and how shall we meet next? Shall you receive my letters? Can you reply to them? What hour tomorrow may I come? They have almost promised me that our marriage shall take place this evening or tomorrow morning. Wherever it may be, Helene, it will bind us together for the rest of our lives. But suppose they do not keep their promise to you. Suppose they make you set out before I have seen you? Alas, said Gaston with a bursting heart, that is possible, Helene, and it is that I dread. Oh, mon Dieu, do you think your departure is so near? You know, Helene, that prisoners are not their own masters. They may be removed at any moment. Oh, let them come. Let them come. The sooner you are free, the sooner we shall be reunited. It is not necessary that I should be your wife. In order to follow and join you, do I not know my Gaston's honor? And from this day I look upon him as my husband before God. Oh, go proudly, Gaston, for while these thick and gloomy walls surround you, I tremble for your life. Go, and in a week we shall be reunited, with no separation to threaten us, no one to act as a spy on us, reunited forever. The door opened. Great heaven already, said Helene. Madam, said the lieutenant, the time has elapsed. Helene, said Gaston, seizing the young girl's hand, with a nervous trembling which he could not master. What is it? Cried she, watching him with terror. Good heaven, you are as pale as marble. It is nothing, said he, forcing himself to be calm. Indeed, it is nothing. And he kissed her hand. Till tomorrow, Gaston. Tomorrow, yes. The Duke appeared at the door. Gaston ran to him. Monseigneur, said he, do all in your power to obtain permission for her to become my wife. But if that be impossible, swear to me that she shall be your daughter. The Duke pressed Gaston's hand. He was so affected that he could not speak. Helene approached. Gaston was silent, fearing she might overhear. He held out his hand to Helene, who presented her forehead to him, while silent tears rolled down her cheeks. Gaston closed his eyes, that the sight of her tears might not call up his own. At length they must part. They exchanged one last lingering glance, and the Duke pressed Gaston's hand. How strange was this sympathy between two men, one of whom had come so far for the sole purpose of killing the other. The door closed, and Gaston sank down on a seat, utterly broken and exhausted. In 10 minutes the governor entered. He came to conduct Gaston back to his own room. Gaston followed him silently, and when asked if there was anything he wanted, He mournfully shook his head. At night, Mademoiselle Delaunay signaled that she had something to communicate. Gaston opened the window and received a letter enclosing another. The first was for himself. He read, "Dear neighbor." The coverlet was not so contemptible as I supposed. It contained a paper on which was written a word already spoken by Hermit, hope. It also enclosed this letter for M. de Richelieu. Send it to de Mesnil, who will pass it to the Duke. Your servant, Delaunay. Alas! Thought Gaston, they will miss me when I am gone. And he called de Mesnil, to whom he passed a letter.